Welcome to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce.
The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Katerina and Chris came to me looking for their first home.
Whether it was finding a house or a mortgage broker, Rebecca helped us through every step of the process of buying a home. We highly recommend Putnam Real Estate.
Whether you're looking for your first home, an investment property, or need to sell, our professional agents and brokers will save you time and money. We're familiar with the local building, zoning, and conservation codes, as well as the financing rules for first-time home buyers. Our success comes from your satisfaction.
My name is Rebecca Putnam, broker-owner of Putnam Real Estate. Putnam Real Estate, here for all your real estate needs.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Having just come off of our town election of last Tuesday, our first item of business after the pledge is the reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. And as acting chair, I'll run this election we have for vice chair and chair. Do we have any nominations?
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Would you like to introduce our newest selectmen?
I don't know who they are.
Oh, yeah, you're ignoring
Actually,
them.
Sorry, I'd certainly like to welcome Megan English Braga and Ralph Herbst as our two members to the Board of Selectmen. And we look forward to working together over this next year and to see the town business served as best as we can. So congratulations and thank you for being willing to step forward. I know you've both been to some of our meetings and see what we go through, and so willing to still put your name forward is certainly something we appreciate.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson, for that reminder. Do we have any nominations for chair?
I'd like to nominate Doug Jones.
I'll second.
Nomination is second. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, I'll say the nominations are closed. We'll then have a vote on that nomination. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Now I'll entertain a motion for vice chair. Mr. Patterson?
I nominate Susan Moran for vice chair.
We have a motion and a second. Any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll close the nominations for vice chair. All those in favor of the nomination of Sue Moran as vice chair, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. The ayes have it.
Can I just
Mr. Patterson.
make a comment? I know I thought about this as well, but it seemed to me that with the changeover of new board members coming on board, it really did make sense to maintain a continuity of executive officers as we move into this next year. So that's why I support this particular select office. And they've done a great job, having been part of their reign, if you will, their positions over the last year. So I appreciate their willingness to step up and serve another year in their respective roles.
Well, I appreciate the comment of us as an executive board, but the way this board has worked the past year and the way I hope in the future, it really is the five of us working together as a board with people named to be chair and vice chair, but really I've seen very little of a distinction as to what we do besides titulary and nominary.
And well, that's one of the reasons why I felt so comfortable about sticking with the same officers, quite honestly, because that's the way the board ought to be working, really. And the chair, whatever the board or committee is, really should be there to service the other members of the committee and draw out their deliberation and give them an opportunity to voice their various positions. It's an implementer, really.
Absolutely.
In contingent also with the reorganization, in your packet you should see a list of the liaison assignments that we had in the past year. I did not want to take that up tonight, but I just wanted to have it in the packet and potentially at our next meeting, particularly for Ralph and Megan, to look at what positions had been held by the previous two selectmen, and for the three of us also to consider if there were committees that we felt we had worked well with and want to stay with, or if there are other ones that we felt that our two new selectmen might be well served to be represented. And we'll have that at a future meeting, but I just want to have that on the list of where your options could be considered. If you follow Mr. Patterson's model of how he does his liaison, it's a very, very challenging role. I think makes it almost every single committee meeting. It is not something that I think, can actually all aspire to, and we can aspire to, but it's a very high expectation. Really what we've established in our policy is liaison is the conduit of information from the board to the committees, back and forth. We are not advocates for those boards, but we are a way of getting information spread as quickly as possible. Really, if they have big issues, we hope the chairman of the board are going to be encouraged to come to us directly. But any more information we can get one way or the other is certainly useful.
And it expedites the line of communication.
Yep.
And may I say that I found it's a very good way to stay in touch with the citizens of the town. By interacting with the committees, you're really assured that you're going to be interacting with more people and not just sort of the same old faces that we tend to fall into. So it's one of the reasons why I've been happy to put in the time that I have.
Our next item is a proclamation. Ms. Braga, if you would read the proclamation as a motion, please.
Proclamation for Cape Cod Pride Day by Falmouth Selectmen on the occasion of Cape Cod Pride Day, a celebration picnic for the LGBTQ community and friends, Saturday, June 25th, 2016, Morse Pond School. Whereas Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month, LGBT Pride Month, is currently celebrated each year in the month of June to honor the 1969 Stonewall riots in Manhattan, which proved to be a tipping point for the gay liberation movement in the United States. And whereas Falmouth's No Place for Hate organization and PFLAG Cape Cod, the co-sponsors of Cape Cod Pride Day, are committed to celebrating diversity and working to diminish bias and prejudice. And whereas the town of Falmouth prides itself on being a welcoming and inclusive community that celebrates diversity, therefore, we, the Selectmen of Falmouth, hereby declare June 25th, 2016 to be Cape Cod Pride Day in Falmouth. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hand and caused the great seal of the town of Falmouth to be affixed.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Next, under announcements, I do want to announce that those of you at home who want to change their channel, at 7:30 this evening on Chronicle, they are doing a piece on Cape Cod Life magazine. Last Friday, the Knobska Lighthouse was part of their show, and tonight it is highlighting some of the top spots in the Cape Cod, with the gold medal place to walk being the Knob in Quisset in Falmouth, and a number of other Falmouth locations are being honored tonight also. So if for any reason you don't want to watch us, you can go check Chronicle from 7:30 to 8 and then come back and we'll still be meeting. Or I'm hoping someone's going to tape it so we can check it out later. But once again, Falmouth being recognized as one of the best places in the Cape to visit, as we already all know.
And longtime publicist Brian Shortstreet is being interviewed, so
Yep.
that should be very interesting.
Any other announcements? Public comment. If anyone has something they'd like to comment on that's not on our agenda for this evening, please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Try and keep it to a total of 10. Anyone who'd like to comment on anything? All right. Next item are our minutes of meetings. April 11th, 2016, public session. And this will just be for the three of us to change and vote and approve. Do we have any corrections? April 11th?
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Yep.
these are two small corrections, but on page 5, when you come down the page, well, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th paragraph from the bottom, where you see the it looks like 25%. It should be state maximum of 2.5%. I don't know whether there's a decimal there or not, but it wasn't obvious to me, so everybody
The
knows
20,
that.
oh, the state maximum?
The state maximum
Of 2.5%.
25. It should be 2.5%.
Okay.
It wasn't obvious to me. And then on page 6, in the very last sentence, well, actually, it's just above the item 5, it says that the vote yes was 5. There were only 4 of us there.
Yep.
So that should be changed to 4.
Okay.
Motion to approve with those changes?
Second.
A motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. And then we have the May 9th minutes.
Mr. Chair, I did not
I
receive the
did
May
not
9th.
get those. There was a note. from
Oh, right,
the-
I'm sorry.
I don't think we got
Okay,
those yet.
so we have those, they'll be at our next meeting.
Right.
In addition, I think the April 11th. Okay.
Right.
All right, so we'll hold off on those minutes. Mr. Suso, next is to vote to affirm the appointment of the town engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As town manager, it's my great pleasure to appoint as town engineer Jim McLaughlin, subject to the concurrence of this board. Jim is come to us as the best qualified candidate among a number of qualified applicants for this position. He worked at one time for the Army Corps of Engineers and followed with a distinguished career in the private sector as a professional civil engineer. He also has a master's degree as well, and comes highly recommended. Jim is with us here this evening, and I'm delighted to recommend him to the board for appointment. If the board has any questions or comments, we certainly welcome that. I should note as well that I am requesting the board's consideration of a waiver of residency. Jim is anticipating residing in Dennis on the Cape, but as the board is aware, there is a provision for a waiver of residency, and that is been done with, not in every case, but in a number of cases here with department and division heads. So I would so recommend as well.
I move that we approve the appointment of James E. McLaughlin to the town engineer's position, and that we waive the residency requirement.
Second.
I have one minor question. Is Mr. McLaughlin here? Yep.
Yes, he's with us.
I see your extensive hockey experience. Any chance we can also get you to help out in doing some coaching with our Falmouth Youth Hockey League?
Sure.
Great. I put you right on the spot. All those in favor of the affirmation of the appointment, say aye.
In that case,
Aye.
Opposed? None.
And thank you very
We
much.
will not necessarily seriously hold you to that, but I was just thrilled to see the involvement that you are with both the engineering professional experience, but also with working with the youth in the towns. That's just
Terrific. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
welcome.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
I have to say that in reading through his resume, it was pretty impressive, and very much appreciate the fact that you were willing to put your application in and serve us in the capacity of a town engineer. So,
Thank you.
really appreciate it.
Great.
I'm an engineer by background. I think Ralph is too, so.
But I don't practice it.
Thank you.
Next is a request for a change of manager of an all-alcohol common victual license. This is the Falmouth Property Restaurant LLC doing business at the British Beer Company on 263 Grand Avenue. And this is the change of manager to Jessica Hopkins. Does Jessica happen to be here this evening?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
We do have a statement from John Doyle to the police department that they've done a Cory check. They have no issues with this appointment.
Motion
Is that official?
to approve the change in license.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the change of manager. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. Next item is the approving application for a special agricultural liquor license for Down East Cider doing business as Farmer Willie's at the Falmouth Farmers Market, Marina Park. Do we have anyone from either the Farmers Market or from Down East Cider here this evening? Well, I'll start off the discussion. This will be our fourth special agricultural liquor license for wine at the Falmouth Market, and I'm feeling, I guess I'd like to have someone here tell us more as to why 3 is not enough. I sort of think for that locale, potential that they could go to 4 different places and be consuming wine at that. I think that's not what I see the farmers market being about. So unless everyone either disagrees with me or feels that we don't need a 4th one, I guess I would rather put this on hold and see if they want to come forward and argue a case to have this one.
I agree, and I just would also like some information just so they can focus on it. The request is in the name of Down East Cider DBA Farmer Willie's, and there is a Farmer Willie's Incorporated, which is a company that lists Providence, Rhode Island as the principal office. And I I'm also, in the position of just questioning why the difference in the application, what is the relation to the corporation, and is this a test market? So I have some questions, and I hope the proponent can come and answer.
Ms. Patterson?
I'd say, yes, and just, one of the things we might consider is just limiting the number of portions that would be distributed by each of these licensed vendors, so that, as you suggested, they could, that would curtail some of the possibility of them going from vendor to vendor to vendor and consuming enough alcoholic chemical to actually make them legally intoxicated. That's a possibility that we could consider.
Well, the previous licenses all do limit to 5 1/2 ounce samples.
Where?
And I guess I'd feel a little bit leery. I wouldn't want to say they can only do 1 or 2, and the other ones could do 5. If we went up to 4, then we have to say, well, they can only have so many, which as a wine tasting may not serve their purposes as well, so.
Well, and I have to say that my thought was to do it for all of the licenses. Now, I don't know whether we can retroactively go back and change those or not, but I think it's something we should consider, and I'm in favor of what you're suggesting, that we hold off and allow the farmers market to come and defend this.
Okay. Megan?
I don't have a problem holding off if we want to hear from them, but I'm just wondering, I'm not aware of one, but is there a history of any problems at the farmers market? I'm not aware that we've had any issues with anyone over-consuming at these vendors.
Yeah. I think this is the first year we've had more than 2.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Herbst?
Yeah. Did you say just now that this is the first year you've had alcoholic beverages?
No. We've had 2 wineries in the past, I
Oh.
think at most.
At most?
At most.
And now
we've
you-
had licenses for 2, and I'm not even sure how often both wineries show up. But we've already approved 3 this year.
Okay,
And this would be our 4th we'd be approving.
I see.
And it may be that they show up on a rotating basis, and so it hasn't been an issue. I just worry about, is there a limit at which point we should say, enough, 4's enough, 2's enough, whatever we want to. And I guess I'd like to hear a little bit of an explanation from either the applicant or the farmers market who say, this really makes things work very nicely. It's a nice balance. We rotate them. They only come every other week, and so it ends up not being an overload.
Are these conditions standard for all of them?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd like to give them a chance to correct the application if they need to. So I'm going to move to continue this matter to a time when the farmers market and the applicant can attend.
So we have a motion, as, do we have a second?
Second.
And a second to continue this upon the convenience of the farmers market applicant. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, so we'll continue that and hear back from the applicant. Next is administrative order to accept the fiscal year 16 Cape Cod Municipal Health Group Wellness Grant in the amount of $600. Any questions on this evening, Grant?
I just wanted to make note that this was applied for by Kristen Nickerson, who I think extended herself in bringing this benefit to the town, so I just want to say thank you for that.
Here.
And I move to approve it.
Second.
Motion and a second to accept the grant of $600. And there are no stipulations of future donations being needed for this. So this is not something we need to bring to the Finance Committee for their approval of accepting the grant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. All right. Well, let's see, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, and our next item is a public hearing, so we actually cannot move forward on that public hearing.
Joint base people are here.
Yes. Joint base Cape Cod are here.
Well, I know they're expecting to have about a half hour,
Oh,
and so
half
we'd
hour.
have to interrupt their presentation.
How about the taxi permit?
Do we have the applications for the all-season taxi and Falmouth taxi here this evening?
See, Paul?
We got both of them?
Yep.
Any problem with you guys if we put you guys ahead of schedule? And there is a downside that if we have to stop it, if at 7:30 we haven't resolved it, we may have to stop it and pick it up after our, okay. We'll move forward on the application for the license and permit. think as the board is aware, we did have the passing of the previous holder of this permit, and so now the license and the permit for additional taxi is available. And I would suggest that we hear from both applicants and then make our decision on it. So first, we could hear from All Seasons Taxi.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm Charles Burge. I own All Seasons Taxi. I acquired it from Ben Tripkin, who had it for at least 10 years. On January 11th, I came before you along with Ben Tripkin, and this board approved the to transfer it to me so I could have a business to run. I used to work for Paul Moore, Falmouth Taxi, for 9 years prior to me acquiring All Seasons Taxi. I ended up helping train drivers and dispatchers and doing whatever it took to be a taxi driver for this town. Since January 11th, it took me a little more than a week and a half to finally get the vehicle on the road after all inspections and everything to actually start operating. Over the past few months, it's been a slow process due to weather, due to a client base and everything else that I was buying into. I have continually, every day and every week, been out there trying to hustle to serve this town and its residents, customers, and visitors the best way I can as an ambassador for the town, because sometimes I'm the first person that they meet in the town. They want to know where all the restaurants are. They want to know where they can get a hotel room, how to get to them back and forth to the island, and all different questions and answers. I've lived in this town since 1969. I've been a part of Falmouth. I was on the Falmouth Police Force as a Special Services Officer from 1975 to 93. I was Deputy Harbor Master from 1989 to 96, plus working for other businesses during the course of the year. I also have worked for 10 years for the Island Queen for Charlie Bardellis. I am asking for this permit due to the fact to try and make it so that I can have a second vehicle year-round to try and help me with keeping my business afloat and not having to fold under pressure because I can't make it. I will make it even if I just have the permits that I have right now, which is one year-round vehicle and one summer vehicle. It's taken me a while to acquire a second vehicle only because the owner of Alvis Taxi, who passed away on April 12th unexpectedly, he was helping me try and find a vehicle that I could afford and make sure that it was a vehicle that I was putting my money into, that I wasn't going to see it in the shop as often as some other vehicles are. During the course of time that I've worked with Alvis Taxi, we were talking about possibly at some point in time me acquiring, if there was ever possible, his company. But due to the fact that he went in the hospital the last week of March for an operation, it never happened. I have been in contact with his daughter, who I'm trying to purchase Al's car from as for my second car, if I just have a seasonal license. In order to go further into my process of trying to keep the company going, that's why I'm asking for this extra year-round vehicle license added to mine. Any questions?
No.
What do you think is the major, one or two factors that have made business so difficult for you?
Not having a good client list, because when Ben Tripkin had his operation, He had 2 people working for him, which were not totally business orientated. They also had other income coming in, so they just used it as a part-time job. This is my full-time job. This is how I survive. This is how I take care of my family, and I don't want to give it up. I have worked for many people and helped them build their companies and been loyal to them. I was loyal to Paul Moore. I still am. But I'm finding that I can't be everywhere. Even though I'm this size, I'd like to divide myself and be in 2 places. I can't do it. There are a lot of times when I'm on an appointment, I have to call Falmouth Taxi or AA to see if they can take a customer that has called me. There's also been times where they have done the same. We're also up against Uber, Lyft, and a wide variety of livery services. Also, starting this weekend, what hampers my ability to get some customers is the trolley, the transit authority, steamship authority, who some of their employees tell the passengers to take their free bus up to Palmer Ave and then call for a cab from there to wherever they need. So there's a lot of factors that just happen, but I am loyal to any customers that have taken me. I try to find ways of keeping them, loyal to me, and it's a big open area. I love having the ability to try and win someone over, and I feel I am an asset to this town.
Thank you.
Mr. Herbst?
Yes, sir. I noticed that the taxi fares, according to the information we've received, were last revised in 2008. Is that true?
Yes, the present meter is, the minute you hit the meter, it starts off at $3, and then it's $3.25 a mile.
Right.
And in 2008, when the gas prices were way up, the board at that time granted an increase. I believe it was 20 cents at the time or something like that.
Okay, that was my question, because I was wondering how you coped with the fluctuation in fuel prices from '08 to now. Huge differences.
It is, but in order to bounce back and forth with the fuel prices, you'd be changing every single month.
Right.
So the thing is that it is, since 2008, it has been in effect. And people, some people, scream about it. There are other options. You can take a bus from Woods Hole to Hyannis Mall for $2. I can't compete with that.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
Is the plan still, if you had this permit, to go to 3 cars during the summer? And where would the other car be stored?
If I am granted this permit tonight, I will, within the next few weeks, have 3 cars on the road.
And you have space on the Depot Avenue for three vehicles?
Pardon?
You have space in your lot at Depot Avenue for 3 cars?
Basically, my car has been my office. I haven't seen the inside of Depot Ave since when I first, took it over. I was in the process of getting a office up at Industrial Park with even more parking spaces, and so that I could switch out. But Friday, I got notified that I didn't jump on it fast enough and someone else got it. So now I am in the process of looking for another office.
But you don't see an issue with storing 3 vehicles in one spot?
No, it won't, because most of the time they will be on the road.
Okay.
I'm hoping that they're not sitting still, because then I'm paying a lot in insurance just to have them sit there.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then from Falmouth Taxi? I do know that. I'm going to at least hear both presentations, and then...
I don't have a good presentation as Chuck, but Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Paul Moore. I'm the owner of Falmouth Taxi. I've owned Falmouth Taxi since 2008. We serve a very, very big service in this community, and I would say that Chuck does also, but us as the company that has 14 cars on the road and services the town 24 hours a day, we're growing the company, we want to continue to serve the community. Someone asked a question about the rates that haven't gone up since '08. I think it's time to address that. I know tonight's not the night, but running my business now is probably 50% higher than it was in '08. And the biggest thing is insurance. That's what really, really makes it very difficult to run these companies today. And again, I work great with Chuck. Chuck's a great guy. He was a great employee. Certainly, if I don't get this permit, you couldn't get a better guy to do it. But I think we serve the community in different ways than the independents do. And as we grow, we need the cars to operate. We're operating in a different world now. Ms. Moran asked a question about what was difficult for Chuck's business, and I can tell you this, and I hope it's not going to happen, but in the next 8 to 9 months, the first words hopefully isn't Uber, but that is going to be a very big challenge. There's going to be 40 cars this weekend in Falmouth from Uber. There's going to be 40 cars in Bourne, 40 cars in Barnstable, and a few other towns down the stretch. That is definitely a topic that's been on our mind for a while. Been communicating with the town administrator. He's been very gracious to my many, many emails that I've been on him about, but it's getting tougher to operate in this environment. It's brutal. It's brutal. And there's going to be 40 cars in town Friday and Saturday and Sunday night. Competition, unregulated vehicles. I don't think we mind the competition. It's the regulation. And I know, again, it's probably another topic for another day, but it's something I felt compelled to mention because it's going to, we need local taxi companies in this town to service the elderly more than anything. And that's what's growing in my business, insurance work, elderly, getting people from, to and from their doctor's appointments. I think it's over 50% of the people over the age of 65 do not have a smartphone. They need us, they need the independents, they need our company. We take pride in servicing that part of the community, which is, I think you would all agree that, and that's what we want to continue to do.
Any questions for Mr. Moore? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we want to have some deliberation, or are we ready to vote? If it's deliberation, we'll have to postpone until after our hearing.
I guess I don't think that any further deliberation is going to make a difference.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'm going to make the motion that the license go to Falmouth Taxi.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yep. Just my reason for preferring Falmouth Taxi is that they've already got a fleet that's established and are in a better position to basically provide that extra license as a service to the citizens of the community. And I think that's got to be our first priority, is service to the community, and that's the company that I think is in a better position to be most efficient at it.
I agree.
I'm going to disagree and say I would hope that we could have two businesses that could be growing and flourishing, and I would hate to have us not have all seasons, and so I respect that, but we'll have our vote. Mr. Herbst?
Yeah, these are tough decisions to make, but it appears to me as though a little more competition would be advantageous and give All Seasons Taxi an opportunity to grow a bit and also serve the community in an efficient way.
Any other discussion? So we have a motion and a second for the license, for the permit. Again, there are only 18 permits allowed in this town, and so they can only go to someone who's already licensed. So that's the reason why it has to go to one of the current license holders.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there any mechanism if a license is being underutilized or not utilized? Is there something that's a mechanism for that to be renewed if 6 months from now, it goes to a particular business and that business isn't using it.
And the permit's not being used?
Yes, do we know if there's a mechanism for reviewing that, whether or not that's being, just because obviously there's this longevity to these permits, so.
I do know they're paying for it. Yep.
You do have,
Mr. Burridge, you have to come back to the microphone.
every year in November, we come up for renewal of the licenses. At that time, you can take away anything you want or give us anything you want. That we have to do it every single year.
I guess the other reason I could support the motion on the floor is that Mr. Burridge is still yet to get his second vehicle for the seasonal license, which will get him through basically now until the end of the season, and then in November, at which point we could say, boy, that worked great. We could make a transfer at that point and make that, we would be taking the one we had just granted to Mr. Moore and transferring to Mr. Burridge, but that we would have that opportunity if we thought that that would be useful.
I agree, and in the meantime, while he's making sure that he's got that operating well, and the town is served by having another vehicle on the road.
Mr. Herbst?
It appears that as little I know about this, it appears it's up to the operator to decide whether or not the license would be annual or seasonal.
No, I don't believe so.
Well,
you may be correct.
Because
It's 18 total.
I recall that Mr. Burridge said he was going to add one on the annual side.
Right now, he has one annual and one seasonal.
I see that.
And the
On the
permits
chart.
out there is an annual one.
Right, but Mr. Moore didn't indicate whether he was going to have an annual or a seasonal if it was added to his. So I'm assuming then that it is up to the operator to decide which one it's going to be.
This is a case where I think Mr. Moore probably knows better than we do.
You can't have more than 50%. So right now, I have 8 and 6, and I'm proposing to do 9 and 6. Or I could make that 8 and 7. It just can't be over 50%. Seasonal versus annual.
You have to have more annual, because you have to
Correct.
be able to serve the community
Correct.
year-round, whereas
That's
a
right.
seasonal is where you know, that's the
Right.
boom, and if you took it away, the community suffers after.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you would add an annual?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to award the remaining permit to Falmouth Taxi. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So the motion is defeated. At this point, unfortunately, unless we have another motion on the floor,
Well, I would move that we award it to All Seasons Taxi.
the motion is award
Award
the
the
annual permit
annual
to
permit, yes.
All Seasons Taxi.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
Before you vote?
Sure.
As I said, Chuck is great. Here's what the problem I have. I think now, if he's going to have 3 permits, 2 seasonal,
No,
2 annual and 1 seasonal, principal place of business is an issue. And right now, I don't see that he has one. And it was a bone of contention with the other, with the previous owner at A&A. There's a phone number there, but I don't believe, I don't know if you can park cars over there. And to me, it's about leveling the playing field. If they're gonna grow, that's fine, the competition's fine, but then you gotta look at the bylaw. It's 280-3, Exhibit A. The selectman can grant a vehicle for hire license to suitable person if the principal place of business of the person is located in an address within the commercially zoned area of town of Falmouth. I have to do that. It's very, very expensive, and I think if someone's gonna grow, and they're gonna have 3 permits in town, I think that's something you have to consider.
I would actually entertain a motion that we table this until our next meeting, because I think there is some information that I need to look into as opposed to hearing from one applicant over the position of somebody else. And this, I think, is relevant information, but I just think we need to investigate this ourselves. So I appreciate you bringing that
Thank you.
forward.
So moved.
So a motion to table this to our next meeting, and a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, we'll bring that back. Next is a hearing on dealing with our rates for our water and wastewater. And I need to read into the record our official hearing as provided under Chapter 119 of the Code of Falmouth. A public hearing will be held in the Selectmen Meeting Room, Town Hall, on Monday, May 23rd, 2016, at 7:30 p.m. to increase the water and sewer service rates in the town of Falmouth. And this was published in the Falmouth Enterprise on Friday, May 13th, 2016. Ms. Lowell, Mr. Rafferty. Mr. Rafferty.
Good evening. My name's Steve Rafferty. I'm the town's water superintendent. I'm here tonight with Amy Lowell, town's wastewater superintendent. We are going to walk you through the results of a rate study we had conducted by Ty and Bond. We're going to talk to you a little bit about looking back on where we've been in each of our departments and the rates and the revenue. We're going to talk a little bit about where we are now. We're going to take a look forward, what it means to build a new water plant, what it means to bring new customers and new demands onto the wastewater system. We're going to outline for you a program and some rate increases that we believe will be sure that the financial needs are met for these two departments. I'd like to say that I don't think that a rate increase is a new concept. It's been talked about in conjunction with both the water treatment plant and the expansion of the wastewater system for a while. I'd first like to show you an overview table that is a proposal. And what we're really doing right now is we're talking about a proposal just for a rate increase for the FY17, although, as I said, we've put together some information that looks back a little bit, looks at now, and looks forward a little bit. The very first column is labeled actual, and that's the actual budget and revenue from fiscal year 15. A couple things will jump out at you there. We raised more money than we spent. Part of that was that the department wasn't fully staffed in that period. The other part of that is that we also ran under some of our revenue, but the reality is that for the most recent past, water rates have raised more revenue than departmental expenses. So there was a positive cash flow into the general fund, if you want to think of it that way, although all money that's raised goes to the general fund, and then we come out from a budget. If we look at the budget for FY16, that gap narrows, primarily because in my department we're now close to fully staffed, and we're running several projects at the same time. And if we now look at, in the FY17, we move from building a water treatment plant to actually starting up the water treatment plant. There's some additional costs for the oxygen, the chemical. It's a bigger building to heat. There's some more electricity involved. And most importantly, we've taken out 3 successive loans with the state, and we're showing a portion of that. It's on the line that says debt service, water filtration plant. As those loans kick in on a 3-year succession, the amount to be paid back on each of those loans cumulatively adds up. We're looking at capping it at $1.3 million being recovered through the rate structure. The rest is recovered off of the general taxes. We've done our best here to not over-project our revenue needs, but there's some uncertainty here. What will it really take to run the plant? Will there be a decrease in water consumption because the rates go up and/or more people hook up to the sewer? So rather than come before you tonight to ask for a single value that we know leaves a large pot of money going forward, we've trimmed this as close as we can with the uncertainties we've known. And we're proposing an 18% rate increase at this time on the water rate. You might well ask, is Falmouth paying a lot for water or not? And so one of the benefits of using Ty and Bond is they keep a great database of water rates across the Commonwealth. From that database for both water and wastewater, we extracted those communities that one way or another we felt mirrored the community of Falmouth, seasonal communities, a large difference between summer and winter population. What you've got here is a normalized chart. We've assumed that every community uses 120 units of water and applied their rates to it. The yellow line near the bottom is the 2014 Falmouth normalized rate. All the lines in blue are normalized rates from 2014. That's the latest available data. There's a green bar in there. That's the mass average. That's the average for all, I think, 200 and some odd communities are in their database. So as you can see right now, we're sort of to the lower third percentile for the water rates here in Falmouth. The rate increase we're proposing will move us up a little bit, but doesn't bring us into the upper echelon. I believe it's reasonable, and I'm available for any questions you might have on the water rate. Unless you would like Amy to go forward and do similar for the sewer, and then we'll jointly take questions.
The one thing I do want to point out about the number on the bottom is we're not talking about, that is the normalized 120 HCF, and that isn't what that's just allowing us to give comparisons between towns. It isn't talking about what the normal Falmouth resident uses.
Correct. So in order to compare different communities,
right,
year-round water usage for all the communities in the Commonwealth that was examined was discovered to work out to about 120 units. So in normalizing the data, that's what's done. In Falmouth, we have predominantly all residential users. We have roughly 21,000 services. Almost 20,000 are 5/8 inch meters. If you divide last year's revenue raised by the residential users by the numbers, it came out to $201. It was $198 the year before that and $210 the year before that. I'd like to point out that we have not raised the rates annually. We raise them in sort of steps from year to year. Statewide, the average has been going up at around 5% over the last 14 years. The average has gone up around 2.5% on an annualized basis in Falmouth. So we've been doing very good with our water rates and supply.
Any other questions, Mr. Rafferty? Why don't we move to wastewater?
Hi, I'm Amy Lowell. I'm the town's wastewater superintendent. And the analysis, the rate analysis for sewer is exactly the same as the structure of the rate analysis for water. A couple of differences just in the divisions. The revenue from in the wastewater division comes from both sewer users, meaning property owners, properties that are connected directly to the wastewater system, and their wastewater flows to our treatment plant. But as you probably know, most of the vast majority of the customers in Falmouth have septic systems or cesspools right now. So more than half of the, a little more than half of the revenue in FY15 and FY16 is from septage that's discharged at the plant. So total revenue in FY15 for the wastewater division was $1.75 million. The costs were, we expect our costs to be lower than our revenue in not only they were last year, but we expect them to be again this year. Going out into future years is a little different, and that's why we're here. The basic expenses for the wastewater division, similar to water, we're talking about the operating expenses, which is basically the the annual O&M budget for the division. Annual maintenance and upgrades, those are some bigger system projects that aren't covered by the operating budget. Debt service, you see there's a blank row there for debt service in wastewater, unlike water, because though there have been a number of large wastewater projects, those projects have been voted as excluded debt. And also the biggest of those sewer projects, most notably the Little Pond Sewer Service Area collection and transmission system, the majority of that debt is going to be recovered through betterments. So the sewer rate is not trying to cover debt service for sewer projects for those reasons. Indirect costs and benefits is in both water and sewer. It's the cost of health benefits and other benefits of employees, and then the cost of other town departments' support of our department. And that's estimated to be 50% of our salary and wages budget. So that's where we add together the costs. In FY 15 and 16, as I said, revenue is greater than expenses. Expenses are going to be increasing. The number of sewer customers, as we connect the Little Pond Sewer Service Area to the sewer system, our number of sewer customers is going to increase from a little more than 900 to a little more than 2,300. We're increasing our number of customers, more than doubling it, about 140% increase in the number of customers. And associated with that is an increase in operating costs. Not a huge operating cost increase. It's all going to the same wastewater plant. And we're using a lot of the same lift stations. But this operation and maintenance cost, which is the purple bar that you see on the bottom, that does increase in FY17 and FY18 for increased staffing. The FY17 budget includes an additional operator that was voted at this last town meeting and is in the budget. And in FY18, we're including an additional operating position, which obviously hasn't yet been voted, but it's requested for the increased size of the sewer system. There are additional costs of more flow to the sewer plant. They're not tremendously significant, but it is an increase in our operating cost. Another increasing cost on the horizon is the cost of repair and maintenance of the grinder pumps. The selectmen voted last week a policy whereby the town is going to be responsible ultimately for the maintenance of the grinder pumps, and that includes running the grinder pumps, pumping out the systems when there's a power outage in the service area. That is a cost that hasn't been determined definitively yet. We estimate that I've roughly estimated a cost of $150,000 a year for the next few years for that. That cost will go up after the warranty expires 5 years from now. And as the systems age, that cost will increase. So we estimate 5 years down the road, that cost will be at least $300,000 a year, and obviously there's a lot to be determined there in terms of what those costs are. For this analysis, I've assumed that $150,000 a year is split in half, that $75,000 of it, or half of that grinder pump maintenance cost, is included under the purple bar under operating budget of FY17 and beyond, and that the other half of that would be covered by the general fund. The other cost that's increasing over time, you can see the orange bar is increasing. We're proposing to cover more of the annual capital. It's part of the costs that are proposed in the annual capital cost in November. This is larger projects at our lift stations, pump replacements, et cetera. Proposing that more of that be covered under the rates. So in FY 17 and 18, if we don't have a rate increase, the expenses would exceed the revenue by, I'm estimating, about $150,000 a year. And so you can see here the rate increases are listed across the top row there. We're proposing a 10% increase in FY 17, a 10% sewer rate increase in FY 17, and a 3% the following year, and a 2% increase the year after that. We've drawn a box in both the water and the sewer slide around FY 17 because we're talking about a 5-year planning horizon, what the projected revenue and costs will be over the next 5 years, and we're talking about a phased plan for rate increases, but really what the selectmen will vote when they vote is the rate for FY 17. You'd vote a 1-year rate increase at a time. So this is, a phased, bigger picture plan, but really you'd only be voting the FY 17 increase. So in that's 10% rate increase then does in FY 17 and FY 18, you see basically mean it's basically net zero, where our revenue is covering our costs those 2 years. The reason you see the green bar, which is revenue, increasing beyond the time horizon where we're proposing rate increases is because of the projected increased revenue from the Little Pond Sewer Service Area. Obviously, I said we're adding a lot more customers, so as those customers get connected, we will see revenue from those customers. One thing to remember is it's a lot of customers, but it's not, they are residential customers and they're also, many of them seasonal, so it's not going to double our flow or double our sewer revenue. It's a smaller impact on flow and revenue than it is on number of customers. The sewer system happens to be, the existing sewer system is focused on the highest water users in town, the hospital, the institution, Main Street. So, and the areas we're adding are single-family residential and seasonal. So it will increase revenue definitively. This is a forecast. Obviously, we can't know definitively. There are the main uncertainties in the revenue from those customers is, the main uncertainty is timing, really. We expect the Little Pond Sewer Service Area properties to connect over the next 2 years. Falmouth Heights first, and then Mara Vista. The timing, the revenue lags the connection significantly because they connect, and then we're on a semi-annual billing cycle. So there's at least a 6 month and really more like a year delay between a connection and actually the town actually seeing the revenue increase from those customers. So this is a fairly conservative projection, I think, of revenue in terms of timing, and I'm not taking it up to 100% here over the next few years. So I think that's what, in conclusion, what we're seeing is with the proposed 10% increase, we're covering our costs for the next couple of years, and we are showing a bit of surplus revenue in the years beyond that, but there is quite a bit of uncertainty in both the revenue and the expenses for wastewater division in those out years. So I definitely wouldn't take that to the bank yet. We'll be back discussing those future years in future years.
But both of them are fairly conservative estimates in that it's unlikely we're going to have to come back and increase those out-year percentages, but we might be able to decrease them. But those are sort of the numbers saying, we're pretty sure that those will work. We may be able to come back and say, actually, things are working better. It's unlikely we're going to have to go up more than what's been put forward.
Well, I think the only caveat I'd say to that is we really haven't, the grinder pump warranty covers this period here. Beyond that, we are going to need to just figure out what that is and how we cover it. And I don't know if that means a rate increase a few more years down the road or not.
Just curious on the chart why in fiscal year 15 there isn't an orange bar for annual system maintenance.
So we had ongoing debt from previous projects, but we didn't have wastewater capital projects included in the CIP that year, included in the capital plan last year. This year we have $125,000 for mainly lift station work, and that's what that orange bar is in FY16.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Patterson?
Yes, I wondered whether there are any plans to move toward an enterprise fund method of actually covering the cost of our wastewater and drinking water.
That is something that comes up regularly. That is not something we're looking at in the short term. I believe Jennifer has some thoughts about the timing of that, but there's not a plan in place for a conversion. I think that's a longer term transition.
But if you notice
maybe there are others that are.
If you notice back to the water plan, there's no way we could have gone to enterprise when we were relying on the general fund in the neighborhood of almost $2 million. We're getting closer and closer where actually we could potentially consider it because the town was not needing the surplus to be able to run, and that's something that Jennifer's been pushing very hard to make sure that we can run our town without using the money from water and wastewater to be able to balance the budget. But
I forgot to show that we had a similar chart to what you saw for water. It's a little different for wastewater. Right now, compared to other towns, our current rate is certainly below the mass average. This is, as Steve said, this is a comparison. If you normalize the costs across communities, assuming that everybody uses the same amount of water, Town of Falmouth sewer rate takes our cost per household to a number that's lower than the mass average. If you vote the rate that we've proposed, the 10%, it takes us slightly above that. But this is comparing us to other seasonal communities. There are fewer seasonal communities that have sewer, so there are fewer to compare against. But I wanted to just show you the parallel chart. Obviously, this doesn't take us to the top of the chart. We are still even with a 10% rate increase, we're in the middle of the pack here in terms of the town sewer rate.
Any questions?
I'm just curious, in terms of total cost, what is the percentage of the entire grinder pump package that we just voted, if you know? Is it 10% of the cost, or?
Of our total cost?
Right.
So if our...
Looking at the rate is what made me ask the question.
So the annual operating expenses for FY17, you see that's 1.3 million. I've roughly estimated the grinder pump costs for next year to be 150,000.
Thank you.
So that's, it's 10%.
Right.
Of not of the total cost, but of the O&M cost. And it really is, it's a rough estimate at this point. It's not something that we have managed yet.
Thank you.
And the current plan is only actually 75,000 of that being in the rate, and right now 75,000 being covered within the entire general fund, which is something we can vote to change, or town meeting can vote to change, but that's the way it's broken out right now. Steve had mentioned sort of what the average Falmouth water user's effect was on that 8%, about $200, I think, with a change therefore of around $36, $40 for their rate. Can you give us a general idea of what it might be for the average sewer rate if we vote this 10%?
Yes. So this is the average sewer customer, the average residential sewer customer in Falmouth pays about $430 a year for sewer. And under the 10% rate increase, they pay about $474 a year total. That's including their minimum and the average excess for a residential customer. So it's about a $42 increase for the year.
Does the board have any other questions? I would expect that we should have this out there in the public before we have a vote on it, so I was not expecting we'd have a vote tonight. But I would hope that the next meeting we could have further discussion, get some more questions answered, and certainly have the public give us some response. Mr. Finneran?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6, T-Ticket. I've always maintained that part of the motivation of this building this sewer system was for the revenue stream. And I'd like to point out that on Mara Vista and in the Little Pond sewer area, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% of these people don't spend a day in their houses or use a gallon of water 6 months out of the year. But they'll be paying the sewer rate nonetheless. So we'll be collecting from them and actually and essentially providing no service. So that being the case, it would seem to me that any type of a rate increase would be premature, because we're essentially charging those 50% of those households for a service that they're not using. So it would be basically free cash again. So I'd like you to think about that.
Any other questions, comments? Yep, Mr. Scherer?
Good evening. Or Dan Scherer, Precinct 6 again. On the water rates, I have suggested for many, many years that we change our water rates and charge more as people use more. We are going to run out of water on Cape Cod. It's probably one of the most valuable sources we have here. And I see sprinklers galore on rainy days going. I see people watering streets all over the town. and I get charged for more than I use, because I use a lot, or less, and always have, than our average rate or whatever it might be. So why aren't we making a gradual increase as people use water, instead of just one basic bill? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, thank you actually for raising that point. This is something that we discussed in the administrative meeting and decided that it made sense at this point of the rate change to do a flat fee, 18%. But I'm going to push very hard that we add I can't remember the exact terminology, Ms. Lowe. An ascending block where, as you can say, it had projected that next year it might be a 12% increase. I'm going to push our board to consider that the minimum doesn't have an increase, but we then have an ascending block above the minimum where if you're using a little bit above the minimum, you have a rate. If you're starting to use a good deal more than minimum, then you may get socked a lot more. And at this rate change, it made sense to keep it as understandable and as we adjusted to it, but it is something that I'm going to pursue very strongly, that we look into the ascending block for above the minimum. And it's not really a minimum, as above the set amount.
And on that topic, maybe one of the administrators can clarify, but I believe at this point going forward, aren't we on every other day? And maybe it's a good point in time right now to remind the public, isn't it?
We haven't actually voted the voluntary water restrictions yet this year.
Are there?
I was about to say,
Go ahead.
I need to get onto your agenda during the month of June for our annual, as I love the phrase, the voluntary ban.
Thank you.
Alternating days.
Great. We'll make sure that happens.
I'll be back.
And if anyone wants to be reminded, generally it's that if your house is odd numbered, then you water on odd numbers in the 7 a.m., not 7 a.m. 7 p.m., but from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Is generally a major part of it. And there'll be other things to remind people also, but you can always start before we've actually put it in place.
I would just say that I appreciate, when we're looking at the analysis for the sewer, that there is a significant degree of uncertainty, and I think I appreciate that it's, somewhat of a conservative increase, because there are folks who are already bearing some cost for this project, and we don't know going out what the numbers will be. So I think it's important to bear in mind that we are looking at a somewhat, if this happens, a more conservative increase, as well as the fact that we're going to revisit it each year. And of course, as more information comes in with the new sewering, hopefully that gives us a better sense of what's really necessary. But I certainly appreciate the presentation and the acknowledgement that there's a significant degree of uncertainty going forward.
And just to recap on the sort of typical homeowner who uses the sewer system, we're expecting this increase might increase their bill in the $70 to $90 range, including both. Is that a pretty good estimate of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Both water and sewer.
Someone who's getting both water and sewer combined, that's the effect of what these two votes would be for their annual bill combined. Okay. All right, any other discussion on this issue? All right, we will come back to it.
Did you want to close the hearing?
So if we close, we have a choice of either closing the hearing or continuing the hearing. If we close the hearing, it will just be deliberation, our next point. If we continue it, we could take further input.
I'd like to continue it.
I'd continue it.
I second.
Then we should continue to a time specific. Do you want to try this, do as our next meeting on June 6th?
Sure.
Okay. And I know we have another hearing actually scheduled for that, continued on the Cape Verdean Club. I think that was a 7:30 hearing. Correct. So should we say June 6th at 8 o'clock?
That's the 8 o'clock is the Cape Verdean.
Oh, 8 o'clock at Cape Verdean?
So, do 8:20?
Sure, 8:20. So, entertain a motion.
Move that we continue this hearing to 8:20 on June 6th.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. So June 6th. We'll have two hearings that evening. Great. Now we hear from the Joint Base Cape Cod Commanders with their brief to the Board of Selectmen.
I'm sorry, I closed because
It's all right.
I'm sure they
Paul's
can.
here. Well, good evening,
Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen of the board. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with you. My name is Colonel Frank McGurn. I'm the Executive Director of Joint Base Cape Cod. I'm the only person here who's not a commander of anything. I'm kind of just the pivot person on behalf of the Adjutant General of Massachusetts, Major General Gary Keefe. He's our just recently appointed and has succeeded Major General Rice. So the Joint Base Cape Cod, or as many of you used to know it, the Mass Military Reservation, falls underneath the Adjutant General, and then we have these components that all fit in down there to fill in the national security and the safety of the Commonwealth. So tonight you're going to hear from Camp Edwards. Representing Colonel Bill O'Brien is Colonel Mike Nurse, excuse me, is with us tonight. Our newest commander on the list, Colonel Virginia Doonan, the commander of the 102nd Intelligence Wing, is here tonight. Colonel Dave Anderson, the 6th Space Warning Squadron commander, is here with us tonight. And representing the Coast Guard will be Captain Tim Tobias, the Air Station Cape Cod commander, who will also brief the base Cape Cod as well. So just in case you forgot what your neighbor to the north looks like, this is the approximately 22,000 acres. And the map with the multi-colors shows the dispersion of land and responsibilities throughout the base among the various tenants. The little dot up on top is Colonel Anderson's unit, the 6th Space Warning Squadron, as people call it, Pave Pause. If we could show the next slide. This is, from my own personal perspective, probably the most important slide. As you can see, the economic impact for the military installations around the Commonwealth varies widely from the small to the big R&D-centric Army Native Soldier Systems and Hanscom Air Force Base. So the Joint Base is kind of right in the middle with Westover Air Force Base, with a fairly significant economic impact to the community. One of the ways that we go about assuring that this impact is retained throughout the Commonwealth is the governor of the previous administration formed a quasi-governmental body called the Mass Task Force. It stands for Military Asset Security Strategy Task Force. The new administration under Governor Baker likes the idea. It's centered on economic development, and they have sustained that body. It works very closely with an organization called Mass Development, which is a subset or another quasi-governmental body underneath the Executive Office of Economic Development. So they watch this very carefully. They help us with the collaboration with both the federal and the state partners, and they keep a weather eye out for opportunities for greater collaboration, which I'm proud to say, I think the Joint Base really sets the model for how that works. And the next slide, Bob. Just to give you a sense, geographically, all those other bases would fit nicely with some space left over on the Joint Base. They're all fairly small entities, and as you know, we're a fairly large entity. And this is how we do it. The way we manage, the Joint Installation Partnership Agreement came about under Governor Patrick. It was an executive decision to name the Mass Military Reservation Joint Base, and that was a little bit of branding to really focus the federal Department of Defense partners and other federal partners on how well and joint-like we collaborate and the efficiencies that we generate down there. It's no secret that that was designed to stave off base realignment, BRAC as it's called. And that word is circulating through Congress again with each of the chiefs across the services asking Congress this year, just recently, to reconsider running BRAC. So this was an endeavor here in the Commonwealth to highlight how well we do business and to assure that that kind of language is out there, that joint, it means something to federal appropriators. The body we use is called the Joint Oversight Group. It consists of each of these commanders and myself, and there's a commander's section, and then there's a more open body that includes some of our other federal partners. We have the FAA on the base, Department of Transportation, USDA, and U.S. Geological Survey, to name a few. And then we have some state partners as well, like the Barnstable County Sheriff. So everyone sits at the table. We literally, and similar, less formal than the way you do business, there's no Robert's rules involved, but they put the issues on the table, and then each of the commanders contributes to these subgroups, whether they're security or environmental, and the subgroups really get the work done and come back and make recommendations. But each commander retains their authority, and based on budgeting, operational tempo, you name it, they are often compelled to make decisions unilaterally, and then we all kind of deal with the fallout. But it's been a model. The bullet up there that says interagency cooperation speaks to the fact that Department of Homeland Security has now started to look at Joint Base Cape Cod as the model for this region, for how that entity and how government entities can work together. We were visited by a guy by the name of Russell Deo. He's the Undersecretary for Management for Department of Homeland Security. Really seized upon the model that we're using, and as a result, they are looking to bring a greater DHS footprint down to down to Joint Base Cape Cod, in the same way that they built they call it a campus at the old St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Washington, D.C. And then they'll try to pull in all of their tenants like TSA, Border Patrol, ICE, and other entities like that. So we're actually quite excited about that because we think that they would be a great partner for us. We think that that would just provide more leverage to the way we're doing business now. And I'm very proud that we serve as a model for that particular endeavor. And with that, unless you have any questions about Joint Base writ large, I'll turn it over to our lineup of commanders.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Norris. I'm the Deputy Commander for Camp Edwards. On behalf of Colonel O'Brien, I want to thank you for allowing us to come here tonight. Here's what we do. When we look at it, that's clearly military writing, provide realistic, relevant, compatible, essential, yeah, we train. That's what we do. We train. We have 15,000 acres of training area, consists of cantonment areas, training areas, and we do sit on top of the Upper Cape water supply, which we are very careful to preserve. We provide mission essential training for the soldiers, but a new endeavor that we're trying to reach out into is we're working with law enforcement and first responders in the area, getting them to come in and work on our training areas and working together to meet certain missions. We have an aviation support facility. We have an equipment training site that does maintenance on our vehicles. We have a regional training institute, which is actually expanding exponentially. There's 2 brand new buildings being put in with state-of-the-art training areas and conference centers, hoping to bring in distance learning to the region. And we have over $50 million in federal investments in different water resource management and cleanups. Next slide, please. Yeah, there we go. Some of the highlights. We are currently in the process of revitalizing our pistol range, which has been shut down for quite a few years. We're working in a bunch of different areas to hope to be able to get that up, which will entice our law enforcement back onto the post. And in FY 2020, we are increasing. We're hoping to put in a MPMG, which is a multi-purpose machine gun range. And again, that will attract more users from the region, so we can shoot different caliber weapon systems. We're also, in conjunction with the Air Force, and I'm hoping that they will speak to us, I'm sure they will, we're also trying to go greener on the post. We've all seen the big, huge windmills that we have up. I believe there's 4 up and running right now. I believe we're permitted for a 5th one. I don't know where the funding is for that yet, but we're also looking to put in a solar panel facility, a 6 to 10 watt solar panel facility. And if it works out, the plan is to be completely 100% energy efficient. So we can provide our own energy and sell some back, a little extra. One of the big things for our facility is security. We're trying to step it up a little bit more for those probably that have tried to cut through recently. See, it's not quite as easy as it used to be. So we've increased the security through gate improvements. We're trying to get out through public safety messages with Facebook and some of the Twitter and things like that, get messages out. Trying to increase training and impact area signage, because although we don't shoot as much, there's still things out there that are dangerous, and people shouldn't be running around there. Public safety is important to us, so supporting that. And we're also, I don't know if most people realize this, but we're a major player in the Cape Cod Emergency Traffic Plan. Getting between the Sandwich and Falmouth especially, because we would be the cut through. If one area, one road couldn't be passable, one bridge gets shut down, then we come through our base or through the facility to get to the other bridge. As we talked about safety, we try to utilize a meeting like this to basically put out the message that, kids on ATVs, motorcycles, it's kind of dangerous. You shouldn't be out there. So we'd ask, please don't come out. They think there's a fancy picture there which shows a unexploded piece of ordnance, I believe, right about here, and the track that somebody drove by. So we would like, just to get the word out. I think most recently we got some hunters that came in ghillie suits, and you couldn't even see them. They're all dressed up like grass, running around hunting the deer. Outside of season, of all things. And they came in from out of state. So for some reason, we just attract motorcycles, dirt bikes, and hunters. Last slide would be our natural resources. We do recreational hunting. This year we actually had several different deer seasons. We did we ran a handicap hunting season because we can actually control it really well. So it was a very safe hunt for that segment of the population. We did a veterans hunt, and we also did the standard hunt. We also had a turkey hunting season, which was worked out really well. If anybody's been through the base at all, you see there's turkeys everywhere. We also continue to do controlled burns, and it actually, those are really important to the actual indigenous species that are out there. So by doing the prescribed burns, we actually improve their chances of survival, especially some of the endangered species that are on the post. And we ensure that, as a good partner, we make sure that we do make notices to everybody when we do them. If you have any questions for me?
I hope just a very quick one.
Yes.
In the firing range that we had around here, which was near our water supply,
yes,
we had to do quite a bit of mediation to clean up it. What sort of precautions are you taking that you don't run into the same thing with the spent ammunition in a firing range?
We, couple of different things that we do out there. The first one is we have this really fancy system called a STAP system, which is basically we're shooting into a berm with it's almost like a cloth tarp over it. Okay. And it captures 100% of the lead. Okay. So that's the first thing that we do. The second thing is we shoot, if we're not shooting into the STAP system, we're currently only shooting copper. Okay. Okay, which is less on the environment. But we're also required to trap 90% or 95% of the projectile that goes out. So, through fancy studies and being a field artilleryman, I know all this stuff, but there's line of sight, there's projectile paths, there's all kinds of batwing diagrams, there's all kinds of different things, these calculations, mathematical things with slide rulers, and I look like a real geek when I'm doing it.
You're not still using a slide rule?
No. We have computers now, but when I started, it was actually a slide rule. It's kind of crazy. But yes, but we're required to trap 90 to 100% of our projectiles.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Be followed by Rowan.
All right, thank you. Hi, I'm Colonel Doonan. I'm also a resident of Falmouth for over 20 years. So it's a pleasure to speak to you this evening. So 102nd Intelligence Wing, we've been doing a number of military construction projects over the last 6 to 7 years as we realigned from a fighter wing to an intelligence wing after BRAC of 2005. A number of them have completed or are about to be complete. One of the projects that we're working on right now that's not part of that realignment was a new Falmouth gate, which is very exciting for the residents that live in Falmouth and the Mashpee area because it's right off Sandwich Road. It's got very restricted hours right now. When it's complete, it will meet force protection condition for DoD model, but also it will allow us, by the way that it's set up, that people can gain access to Joint Base Cape Cod or the 102nd Intelligence Wing directly, and that will be run 24/7, 365. So that's that's a good news story for those people that need to gain access to Joint Base Cape Cod from the Falmouth Gate. And I say December, but that construction project is really moving along quite well, and it could be as soon as September of this year. The other military construction projects we've done was the intelligence facility, which is at the top of the left-hand side, set up to do our intelligence mission that we gained in 2008, and it's complete, and the people are in there, and we're operating in that, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. We're also, we've taken beneficial occupancy, but we're doing some minor changes in our new headquarters and support building. We'll be moving into that in August, and that will be a project that will allow us to get out of an old hangar that we've been in for many years since the Air Force owned Air National Guard Base, and it was for Constellation aircraft. So it's a very old facility from the 1950s. It's 160,000 square feet, and we don't need it. So we're going to be moving the last of our people out of that building and into the new headquarters building, and we're looking at a couple of uses for repurposing that building or demolition. So it's going to be one or the other. Finally, we've did a final project. It was a remodeling of our old operations building for the pilots when we flew fighters. It was to stand up a mission that's actually being divested June 30th of this year. We were able to repurpose it because we gained a new mission July 1st of this year for cyber intelligence. So that's complete, and the people will be able to move into that in July. We also have been doing a number of energy projects and green projects. So in addition to what the Army briefed, we've awarded a contract from the Defense Logistics Agency to build a 6-megawatt solar field on our capped landfill that we have. We're running into some problems because the people who got the contracts on us and just filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So we're in the process of awarding it to the alternate. But we do expect to have construction starting sometime this year. And that will be good because the energy credits are still in. So that'll be a 6 to 7 megawatt solar field for the installation. In addition, we got through a federally funded research lab grant, $6 million. We partnered with Raytheon, and we're building a microgrid on Joint Base Cape Cod on the East Campus, which is primarily the 102nd Intelligence Wing and some of the Army Aviation. And that will set up security storage. So we're tying in one of our wind turbines, a couple of our generators, and then eventually the 6-megawatt solar field, so that if power did go down, we would have energy storage, so we'd have secure for our missions, which is a great thing. Also on projects, wastewater treatment plant and water divestiture. We've been trying for some time now to look at a privatization of, and we've been working with the Cape Cod Commission, and all 4 towns were part of the joint land use study that we did a few years ago. So I do think that we'll be successful in privatizing that, and I know Colonel McGurn talked to you a little bit about the Mass Task Force and how Mass Development is assisting Governor Baker in different projects. Mass Development is working with us to possibly privatize our water and wastewater and run it for 5 to 10 years and then hand it over to a commercial or another municipality. And I know that there's been a couple of, especially Mashpee is very interested in doing some capital improvements and tying into that. So once it's privatized, it would be an opportunity for the municipalities to have shared services. So I think that's a great news story for everyone. And it doesn't really fit in line with an intelligence wing running utility systems. Finally, the map he showed you as far as real estate. So about 4,000 acres is owned by the Air National Guard. And we really only need about 700 acres of that 22,000 installation. We needed more when we were a fighter wing because we maintained and operated the airfield and a number of other things. And they were carryovers from when we were an Air Force base. As we've become an intelligence wing, our footprint needs to be really small. So we're going through a declaration of excess process, and we're partnering with DHS and DOD, other entities, so that the owner-user of the property owns the land. And that's kind of that's been a long project. It's going slowly, but it is happening. just talk a little bit about our federal missions that we have at the 102nd Intelligence Wing. I mentioned the two divested missions that we have, command and control and combat communication. Those are actually being divested 30 June of 2016. But the good news is they were missions that weren't necessarily needed by the Air Force anymore. We were able to take most of the existing manpower, and with only a 40-person cut total in our reserves and 2 people full-time, we were able to stand up a new mission, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. Our primary mission is an intelligence mission. It is a distributed common ground station. What we do is 24/7 exploitation of a multitude of sensors on both manned and unmanned aerial platforms, wherever they may be in the United States, or worldwide. MQ-1, MQ-9, unmanned aerial vehicles, the U-2 aircraft, and the Global Hawk. So we are very busy, as you might guess, in the world, doing that 24/7 right here on Cape Cod, and we're deployed in garrison for those operations. We have an engineering installation squadron. Their mission is to deploy to bases when they're ready to make it a more permanent base, and they bury the grounds, the wires and cabling underground. So that they're a very busy unit, and they deploy pretty much on a 1-to-1. They're gone for a year, they come back for a year, so they're very busy. We also have a regional PMEL, which is run by our civilian force. PMEL is a precision measurement equipment laboratory. So they calibrate the tools and the equipment for the aircrafts throughout the Air Force. And that's all civilians that do that. And then finally, it is a federally funded mission for domestic purpose is our SURF-P medical. So federally, they've funded every region, every FEMA region, to have one of these SURF-P medicals, and it's a homeland response if we were to have a nuclear, biological, chemical event somewhere in Region 1, FEMA Region 1. This medical team would come through and set up operations, decontaminate people, and respond within 6 hours. So that's the missions we have currently at the 102nd. Next slide. Standing up 1 July, it's a good news story. We were told in December of 2015 that we would be standing up this new cyber intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance group. So let me just tell you a little bit about, we're going to stand up in 1 July. We've hired the full-time people already that will start in July. We'll have initial capable operations by 2018, and then we'll be fully capable by 2019. And right now our efforts are on hiring and training and getting our systems in place. It's 206 people, 52 full-time, the rest are reserves, and so far we've already recruited 50% of our entire document. So it's a really great news story. So what does it do? It's not cyber operations like most, or cyber security like many people talk about. You hear a lot about cyber security and cyber operations in the business world, keeping our networks safe. We'll be focused on the intelligence of the cyber realm. So, you know, we fight in air, land, sea, cyberspace, and space. We're in the cyberspace realm with this particular intelligence mission. So we may aid cybersecurity people in the Air Force or the DoD, or even in a domestic ops event, we could work with our state partners as National Guardsmen to analyze and give data on foreign state actors and what their motives might be or their tactics, but we aren't necessarily doing the cybersecurity. Also, if there was operations on the cyber realm, we would be working with them to look at what was the cause and effect of that. So it's an exciting mission. I think it's an enduring mission, and it'll kind of secure the 102nd for many years to come, and I think it's going to be great. It's a great to have it here because it's another deployed in garrison type mission. Other than that, that's all I've got. Do you have any questions for me?
Ms. Moran?
Not really a question, but I really appreciate the sustainability that you've emphasized, especially here on Cape Cod and Falmouth.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to be in front of you again. I'm Dave Anderson. I'm the commander of site affectionately known as PAVPAWS. We are the radar site where we continue the same mission that we did back in the late 70s and early 80s, in which we surveil the Atlantic coast for hopefully something that will never happen, of a launch of a nuclear missile towards the United States. Again, just by, that is our primary mission. We look all the way up to the Hudson Bay, across to Greenland, out to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and our coverage extends all the way down to South America, hoping that no one does anything bad to us. We'll talk about it briefly here, but we are getting an additional mission. We're going to be able to utilize our radar in the coming years as an ability to actually target those missiles as they are inbound to shoot them down. Where in the past all we did was we'd provide the information to individuals in Cheyenne Mountain, which is in Colorado. They would then eventually inform the president, and he would decide what to do. So it's going to be exciting for us to be able to provide some level of information to actually neutralize the threat should that ever occur. Of course, in the interim, since we aren't under attack on a daily basis, at least in this spectrum, we do track satellites all of the time on the average of 3 million observations a year, primarily focused on keeping our human space flight safe. We're constantly tracking the International Space Station and all of the little pieces of junk that happen to be up in space so that we don't do anything to our astronauts. But we also keep tracks on what the bad guys are doing up in space to make sure that our friendly forces scattered throughout the world are kept safe and not surveilled, or they at least know when the surveillance is going to come. Again, we do that jointly with our Canadian partners. We have a number of Canadians that work with us, of which one of them is actually a Falmouth resident currently. So he's very grateful for the support that you provide him. Colorado Springs, Peterson Air Force Base does provide us our administrative oversight, so they tell me what to do and how to do it, how high to jump, etc. But we're very happy to do that from 2,000 miles away here. As I did say, we do have a number of folks that live here, many of whom are residents here within Falmouth, of which I'd like to pay particular attention. I'm extremely grateful for one of our families. We normally are what we call deployed in place. We don't go overseas, but I do have someone over in the Middle East right now. He is a Falmouth resident, and I'm happy to report that his neighbors rallied around his family as he is over there, and they took care of all of getting the snow removed for his family as his wife was taking care of their 2 kids, and they're rallying around them this spring and into the summer months until his hopeful return here later this summer. So we're extremely grateful for the love and support that we do get from our communities here. And I can also attest, my family has been a avid user of your recreational facilities and beaches, so thank you so much for the support that you do provide us. Because we have been doing this mission for a long time, and we'll continue to do it with the number of people that we have. You can see there on the slide how many things that we do get accomplished on an operational daily basis. Next slide. Again, continuing with that theme of our morale, welfare, and recreation, we do run a number of programs with the Coast Guard, of which many times we do utilize, like I said, your community facilities and wonderful outdoor facilities here to enrich the lives of our young airmen. I'm also extremely grateful for the support that we get from your fire departments, police departments, and other emergency services as when it comes to a DoD active duty entity, we're a little bit alone and afraid up there near Sandwich, but all of your communities do provide support to us, and on a routine basis they participate and come help us out when we do need help, and so I thank you for that. And finally, I can't thank your local organizations enough, not just the families, but also the many organizations that host our airmen and take care of them, be that through child care or other recreational activities. They truly make life a wonderful thing for our airmen here. As not like the National Guard, they are rather transient, if you will. They're only here for a couple of years, but I can tell you many of them depart Cape Cod with sadness in their heart. Some of the big milestones I'd like to touch on include some of the similar themes that you've already heard. First, I'll talk about we did have a Office of the Secretary of Defense study come here. As much as we love Cape Cod, it is a very unique rental market for our active duty military members that have to live here year-round, and actually finding good year-round accommodations can be challenging, at least with the amount of money that the Department of Defense gives us. And thankfully, we were able to convince the Department of Defense that they needed to give us more money. So starting in 2017, we should see a significant increase to the amount of funds that our airmen and all of the members, be those Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, or other federal workers that collect some level of housing assistance will come, they'll see a rate increase. We've also worked very closely with local power companies. We recently swapped out all of our incandescent lighting, external lighting that we have on our facility. We are a facility that contributes to the nuclear command and control mission of the United States. So one of those requirements is that we always have to have the lights on. And so we have recently changed to LEDs, which will give us, we're expecting a 5-figure cost savings annually by going to that. We've also, as many have probably seen coming across the 2 bridges, we do have the wind turbines. 2 of those wind turbines at the north end of the facility of Joint Base Cape Cod are wind turbines, and I'm happy to report in the last 2 years we've paid 1 electric bill. We've been able to generate over $2 million in energy credits, considering we're the largest single user of electricity on the Cape. It's been a huge windfall for us. We're extremely grateful for that, to the point where the Department of Energy within the federal government recognized our facility as one of the top facilities in the entire United States government for its energy conservation efforts. And I did touch on, we are getting that secondary mission. What we are seeing is a $125 million internal increase. I think I mentioned this last year while we were here. We're very excited for the upgrade from old 1980s technology to cutting-edge 1990 technology that will allow us to do that targeting that I spoke of. And pending any questions, that's all I have, and I will turn it over to the Coast Guard for final comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and fellow selectmen. Thank you for the opportunity to report on about 400 Coast Guard men and women that we have at Air Station Cape Cod and the base. I'm a new face. I assumed command last June, so I'm on year 1 of at least 2, maybe 3-year assignment here at Cape Cod. The Air Station is the only aviation unit. My brief's going to be a little bit more operationally centric. The Air Station is the only aviation unit in Coast Guard District 1. Coast Guard District 1 is responsible from an area at the U.S.-Canadian border all the way down to New Jersey and offshore several hundred miles. We also respond inland. Primary mission, search and rescue, both in the maritime domain and overland as well. As the only aviation force in District 1, we provide services, like I said, from Maine down to New Jersey. We have 4 MH-60 Tango helicopters, and we have 3 HC-144 aircraft, fixed-wing turboprop aircraft. The one on the lower right, actually, you see is a yellow aircraft. This year is the centennial for Coast Guard aviation. We're celebrating 100 years of Coast Guard aviation. Our first Coast Guard aviator who went to Navy flight school was Elmer Stone, and he was winged 100 years ago. The aircraft there is our, I guess, retro colors. That's a paint scheme that we used in the 1950s, I believe. That aircraft, the 6042, is assigned to Air Station Cape Cod, and it'll remain yellow for at least 4 years until it goes down to a heavy depot maintenance down in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. We get a lot of questions because that's also the same color scheme as the Canadians as well, but it's one of ours. Like I mentioned, we're the only aviation force in all of Coast Guard District 1. We're unique when it comes to Coast Guard air bases, though, that we are the only unit that operate and maintains the airfield at the air base. Most other air stations are tenant commands on other DoD installations. This one we actually own and operate. The airfield itself conducts over 30,000 military civilian flight operations per year. So we stay pretty busy over there with a UAS footprint as well. We conduct all the missions except for ice breaking out of the air station. Like I said, we have over 400 active duty members. And Paul, if you want to go to the next slide, please. Actually, back up, sorry, I didn't know you're on the, so some of the milestones, just recently, since I've assumed command, we just completed a joint U.S.-Canadian SAR exercise, also with the active duty Air Force, the other week. We conducted multiple maritime search and rescue exercises offshore, off of Long Island, including the insertion of some Air Force PJs as well. very successful exercise. It's the second one that we've conducted, and we plan to do that on an annual basis. Cape Cod actually, and I forgot to mention this, Cape Cod, the air station there is one of the oldest Coast Guard air stations that we have. We actually can trace our roots back to one of the first 3 Coast Guard air stations. We haven't always been on Cape Cod, but we are one of the oldest air stations in the Coast Guard. Traditionally, we've maintained our operational footprint within the district boundaries, but within the last several years, due to threat vectors, we keep a crew and multiple planes deployed downrange, almost continuous 365. And that includes, like I said, both the H-60 helicopter and the HC-144, mainly conducting drug interdiction operations and migrant operations in areas south of essentially the southern coast of the U.S. Other cases that we've had recently, we do a lot of medevacs off of Nantucket and in the Vineyard. Typically those come in, we process them like any other normal search and rescue case, but if life flight is not available to assist due to weather or other constraints, we take the mission and conduct that. Recently, several of our crews were recognized for an annual award for a couple medevacs off the Vineyard in Nantucket. In addition to the search and rescue mission, we conduct support NSSCs, which are National Special Security events, typically that include presidential movement. So you see there the UN General Assembly that was just held. That was in combination with the papal visit to Philadelphia, and I think 95% of the world leaders attended that UNGA assembly. It was the largest we've ever had recently, and we provided the Maritime Security Aviation Forces for that particular operation. We do that on a routine basis, as well as the presidential visit to the Vineyard, which this year is going to be 3 weeks long, I believe. We provide, not only host the White House Military Office and all the assets there at the base, but we also provide security with other aviation units as well when he is here on the Vineyard or on the Cape. Other cases that we had recently, just last week or so, transatlantic solo sailor, if you've seen that in the news or not, went down about 100 miles off. That was actually a multi-district response. District 5, the district to the south of us, responded as well as an HC-144 from Cape Cod. So successful search and rescue mission where the sailor was saved. And then I'll just mention the Sedona case, which received quite a bit of press as well. That was back in February 15. After I got here last June, we just finished the formal recognition or the submission for that, and the air crew was awarded Distinguished Flying Cross, and there's only been 400 of those awarded in the history of the Coast Guard. So the aircraft commander and the rescue swimmer both received the Distinguished Flying Cross, where Congressman Keating pinned that on the 2 members, and the rescue swimmer is actually still here at Cape Cod. The pilots moved on to Sitka. Next slide, Paul. All right, and so on the base Cape Cod side, I am an aviator, I'm not a civil engineer, but I will report a little bit on what my colleague, Captain Andy Kleiber, is responsible for. Like I said, I've got the air station, I got the airfield, I got all the operational assets and personnel on the base. He provides the support for all the logistical needs on the base. That includes the the shop at the gas station, the housing, MWR, the medical clinic, the youth center, everything you see up there. He just completed work on a brand new barracks, which is on my side of the base, a $10 million facility. It's going to house 42 permanent personnel. Beautiful facility. And we also provide the ambulance service, which does go off base, what I've been briefed on. And the ComStay is no longer there, but we do maintain the facility grounds, and the equipment's maintained by Base Cape Cod. And Colonel McGurn mentioned the consolidation efforts that are underway from mainly a DHS side. One of that might include a move of the Maritime Safety Security Team, which is currently in Boston. They may relocate to the Cape Cod base as well. That's TBD at this point in time. But pending your questions, that's all I have from the air station.
Any questions? Thank you. Very extensive and informative. Thank you very much for all the information.
Thank you.
And when departing, we always welcome members of your board to attend the Joint Operations Group. I know your neighbor, Sam,
You have to. This is for the microphone on TV people.
Sorry about that. So just as we depart, I would like to extend an invitation to anyone on the board or representative of the town to attend the Joint Operations Group. It's the first Thursday, and if you get in touch with myself or Paul, we can pull a seat up there at the table for you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks once again.
Our next item is our monthly water and wastewater report from Ray Jack, our DPW director.
No, she had to leave.
Thank goodness for that cruiser drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to everyone, and a special welcome to our newest select people, Ms. Braga and Mr. Herbst. Congratulations, and look forward to working with you over this term or terms, whatever your decision may be. I'll try to be brief. I do realize that you're running behind tonight, so I'll try to go as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Okay. There we go. Okay, start out with Long Pond. Original construction contract, $40.9 million. The adjusted contract value as of this month is $40.3 million. We had a recent change order for $189,000, which was for the firing range remediation. The good news about that is that the original estimates were over $500,000. We're going to be bringing that in for about $350,000. And the other good part about that, too, is the $500,000 would have been the cleanup effort, not to mention the 5 years that we would have had on a remediation plan. So we're filing the final paperwork now to get our final approval, and then the site can be closed out. And I do have a couple slides in the presentation to show you that. As of now, in April, 53%, so we're probably running about closer to 57% right now for this time of the month. Paid out $21 million on the contract, and this will appear to be online for completion in May, so it's running on time. Potential change orders coming up, $336,000. There are a number of components in there. There's another $61,000 for the remediation on the firing ranges. $158,000 is the biggest part of it, which is for stabilization of the intakes. Originally, when we were going to directional drill the intakes, there are two 24-inch intake pipes, two 3-inch air bursts. They were supposed to go in the same holes. We weren't able to do that due to the cobbles underground. So we had to continuously try to horizontal drill them. We were successful in getting them in, but now we have to be able to stabilize them because of the slope that they're sitting on. For cash flow, the green dots and light green line, curved line at the top, represents the projected earn value, and 40.362, that blue straight line, is the adjusted value, and then the red line and the $20 million that's shown there represents the payments to date, and this puts us up in month 13. So the lines are running close together, as they should, and we don't expect any substantial changes on that. Concrete had 9 pours, 880 yards. There will come a time when we won't be pouring that much concrete, hopefully soon. The raw water pump station, currently backfilling. I have a couple pictures to show you on that. Starting on the foundation work, they're forming the walls, and then they'll be pouring the foundations. Also forming and pouring the walls for the ozone building, and now the clearwell tanks. The backwash tanks are completed, so the effort now is going to be on the clearwell. The plant masonry is nearly complete, and they'll be starting the veneer. They're a little bit behind on that. So when you do see the pictures of the plant and you see everything that's the cinder block gray, that is not the finished look on the plant. There is a tan CMU block that's a split face block that will be going on the exterior of the plant. Mechanical piping is ongoing, and that's for all of the units in the building, predominantly the dissolved air flotation influent piping and the filter influent and effluent piping. And then they're also installing the roof membrane and the openings in the roof for the accesses, the conduits, and the HVAC systems. So now this is a filter gallery area here, and this is down near the pump chamber areas. And I do realize that the current selectmen are probably more familiar with where these positions are at the plant, but this is actually down near the pump chamber area. In the last couple of months, this blue item that's up on the blue item that's up on the left is the plate settler that we saw last month. So this is where we were in March in this area, and this is where we are today. So that's a substantial amount of piping that has gone in. And the piping that you're looking at there is like 24 and 36-inch pipe. It may not seem big in a picture, but it is rather large. What the front of the plant would look like in February, what it looked like last month, and up along the top of the roof line, you can actually see some of the structural steel up at the top, and then they had railings going above that. So that's one of the things that they completed during the past month, and that's what you see in this picture. So the masonry, for all intents and purposes, is completed there. Now you see the upper rails because they're going to be working on the roof. This was the garage rear in April, and the garage rear now. And as you can see, the lintels on the windows and the door openings, they're extruding from the building in order to accommodate the block when it goes up, the veneer block. This is an interior shot of the garage area. Backwash tanks, and looking straight into it at the pump chambers where we were in March. In the front, on the bottom right of the picture, you can see the forms for the backwash tanks on the walls. Here, most of the walls were done, but you see where they have the rebar on the roof structure or floor structure that's going to be going on it. And in the upper left, you can see there's a fair amount of the building wall that's missing up near the roof. So then today, the building itself is done, the backwash tanks, and there were 2 tanks that are actually shown in that picture. Both of those are complete, and that crane right there is actually placing a fitting into the tank area. This is just the scaffolding for the masonry work that's going on. The ozone chambers in March, what they look like in April. On the left side, you can see that the exterior walls were still being formed, as well as work on the interior walls. And now the exterior walls are done, and they're preparing for the roof and doing substantial work on the interior chambers and walls. Raw water pump station on the left, extruding up out of the sand, is the wet well itself, and it has the forms still on it for the final pours. Then after that was complete, the forms were removed, and that area was backfilled and started to come up to grade. So the picture that you see on the right, that's only about half of the wet well that is still showing after it's been backfilled. So the white that you see in the middle, that's looking down at the top of the wet well itself. The other forms that are around it are the forms for the foundation for the building that's going to be going in. Unfortunately, as you can see, there's very little light on the interior of the building, so it's rather difficult to photograph. But on the larger photograph there, and where you see the wood railings, those are the filters. And then behind the filters, where right in the center of the picture, you see that one fairly bright light. There are also block walls in there, so those are the bathroom and restroom facility areas where the walls are going in on all the interior structures now. So it's not just one big open building. In April, this is looking into the backwash and clear well areas, the pump chamber area from the eastern side of the building. So on the left, right there where the porta potty is, that's the backwash tank area in April. And on the right, you can see that they had just started putting down the foundations and the walls for the clear well. And so here we are today. They've made substantial progress. The backwash tanks are done. The clear well tanks are coming out. Each of those vertical forms that you see is a baffle that's going to cause the water to channel around those baffles to avoid short circuiting. This is the work going on putting down the roof membrane. Some of the piping on the DAF influent, and those are 30-inch pipes. The valve on the right, on the front, very front lip of that valve is a pen, just to give you an idea of what the size of the valve is. So on the picture on the left, yeah, they look like blue valves, but they're actually very large. This was on the left-hand side. You have a guy in the bottom on the formwork, one in orange and one in yellow. They both have lines that they're holding on to that form that's coming down from the crane, so they're getting ready to position that. And then, of course, on the right, that was the crane that was lifting that form in place. Firing range area, last month when they were removing the soil, that's on the left-hand side where you see the equipment. The screeners on the bottom right, that's what physically removed the bullets from the sand. And then the final is where we are right now, so that's what's left out there. And then that's what the plant's going to look like. And as you can see, the veneer that I'm talking about is a tan veneer, so it doesn't look quite as stark as the gray block.
Any questions on the filtration plant? Okay. Little Pond Sewer.
Great progress.
Little Pond, original contract, $20.4 million. Adjusted value as of now is $21.063 million. That represents $644,000 as far as a contract change. We just had a $340,000 change order, the bulk of which was Spring Bars Road at $165,000, as well as $182,000 for paving modifications in the Falmouth Heights area for the final paving that went out there. We're 50% complete as of April. However, where they really are on the project, they're doing a very good job, and they are actually ahead. So the project is not probably going to be going until June, July of 2017. The progress that they're making now, they should be able to pretty much finish up the pipelines over the next several months, and then the final paving and final project will be completed in the spring of next year. Potential change orders, $163,000 is what we're going to be looking at, and there are a number of different things in there. The bulk of that is $65,000 for final paving on Spring Bars Road that we're going to be looking at, as well as another $80,000 in utility conflict changes and things along those lines. And some very minor ones that comprise about $4,000 to $6,000 a piece when we encounter a problem. So for the cash flow, the original budget at 20.4 is in blue. The adjusted budget is just slightly above it at 21.06, and then 10.45 million is what's been paid out, and that's the red line on the left. So once again, the lines are running relatively close to where they're supposed to be. For Mara Vista, same thing, force and gravity mains, and the lateral work is going to be ongoing, and that'll be ongoing through the summer, through the fall. On Route 28, gravity and force mains from Alphonse down to the Admiralty Motel. have been complete, and I know that that was a difficult time, but they did complete that project 2 weeks earlier. I think the paper had said that it was 1 week, but it was actually 2 weeks earlier than was projected at Memorial Day. The Mara Vista Avenue trunk main is complete from Randolph down to Iroquois. They were working on that last month, and now they're working from Randolph north. On the lift stations, both Mall and Alphonse lift stations, mechanical, electrical, and architectural was done in April, and then the other addition that is going on in May and June would be landscaping as well, because they're moving relatively quickly on those. And the Robbins Road lift station, which is at the head of the harbor, that has been undergoing reconstruction as well. So where we're going beyond here for Mara Vista, same thing, gravity and force mains and laterals, but on Mara Vista Avenue itself, the trunk main, which is north of Randolph, it's going to go up to Hitching Post, and that takes it up to the Mara Vista extension during May and June. Then the Mara Vista Road, Mara Vista Ave, where it veers off to 28, is going to be June and July. But then once those are done, that completes all of the trunk mains that are necessary for the Mara Vista and Route 28 area. Then it'll just be work on all the side roads, putting in the gravity mains and connecting them. Falmouth Heights, the paving restoration is complete as of now. For the lift stations, working on the architectural, mechanical, electrical, and landscape. So this was a gravity main going in at Oak. The green pipe that you see on the side is the gravity main getting ready to go in. This one was a connection that was being made at Mara Vista, and I know it's kind of difficult to see, but up at the top right of the picture, within the excavation, just above the shoring, you can see the manhole down by Mara Vista. On the left-hand side is a leaching basin for a leach pit that was existing in the street that they went by. But these are actually fairly deep holes, so the closer they get to Mara Vista. This was milling that was done on Young for final trench restoration. Grand Ave, final trench restoration. Jericho Path, this was a portion of Jericho Path that the trench repair was going to be. So that was milled and paved just for one lane. Another portion of Jericho, as well as a large portion of Lake Lehman, had a full width overlay, as did Worcester Court. Route 28, this was a gravity main that was going in. He's inserting it through the trench box there, the green pipe. This was kind of unique. In this particular shot, they were actually putting in 2 laterals on Route 28 at the same time. So it's one of the reasons they have brought an extra crew out. That's one of the reasons why they were able to finish the project up so quick. This was a manhole being installed on 28. Alphonse lift station in April, and where it is today. So that is the final exterior look on it. And the other lift station is really a copycat of the Alphonse lift station, but they're coming along very nicely, and of course a lot of the piping work and underground work has already been done. So where we were back in April, the 2 circles up there, the one on top, I would say focus in the area between the 2 yellow lines there, because that represents the trunk main that was going in on Mara Vista from Randolph to Iroquois. In April, they still had several more streets to go. And then on the circle on the left-hand side, when you see the yellow line, go all the way down to where the Admiralty is, and then the areas turn blue, that means that the lateral connections were also put in. So that's where it's at now. So you can see Falmouth Heights is done, Route 28 is done, and the lower portion of Mara Vista is done. And now the gravity mains are going north on Mara Vista and Mara Vista Extension, and Mara Vista, and then up Mara Vista to Route 28. So they're really doing a very, very good job out there. Questions?
I have 2. On the paving of Route 28 between Edmund and Stop and Shop, are we still waiting for the gas company to finish there, or do we have any, is that going to be done, is anything going to happen to that before the fall or next spring?
For our portion
Yep.
of the road, our portion of the road won't be this summer. Our portion of the road would be in the fall.
So we are stuck with the paving conditions now.
For our area, yes.
And are we ever, on the continuation of, I guess it's East Main Street, or the connection of Route 28, is that eventually going to be done also? Right now it's in gray. Is that going to be piped also, or
I'm not quite sure I'm following you.
if you go from Route 28 to Stop and Shop and follow along Route 28?
That already exists.
But that's already existing, okay.
Right, from 28 down to Dillingham, that main's already in.
Okay, great. So
That
that's
was a
not
prior
gonna
main.
Do I follow that you're going to be going by elementary school coming up? You're going to be by
He's fine.
the East Falmouth Elementary, in fact.
T-ticket.
Is going,
Or, okay,
right.
whichever one is.
T-ticket's off of Mervis.
So you're going to be
Right.
going right by, as far as I understand.
Well, they're going to be connected, yes.
And
But they're going to be connected through the back.
Yeah, lift stations in the back.
Okay.
Right.
So you don't anticipate there's going to be further disruption of school buses or access?
On Mara Vista proper,
Right.
yes,
That's what I mean.
yes. But they do have detour routes now
So you've
available
been
to them.
working with the principal on
Oh,
the
yes.
detours?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, we had an inquiry from a resident on Young Road. Are you going to resurface that entirely? Or is it strictly going to be a trench repair patch?
Yeah, on there, that is a trench repair. And the difference between going overlay, and I won't just say overlay, it's mill and overlay. Mill and overlay is obviously dramatically more as far as the cost goes. But the difference really has to do with the condition of the road and its ability to withstand the construction. So the slide that I showed you on Young showed you that the road is actually in pretty good shape. He has some cracking in front of his house, and I know he had concerns, and there will be others, because wherever one road gets a full width overlay and nice pretty black asphalt, and the other one gets a black strip down there, that black strip will turn gray, but it's not a paving project. It is a sewer project. So there is not enough money to be out there paving all of those roads. So the roads that were capable of withstanding the construction had trench repairs, and then the other ones where they would have overlays are for those roads that didn't withstand it so well. And I think Spring Bars was really a good classic example of that. That road was almost disintegrated by the time we were done with it. So, but what I would say, though, is that in the future, if any of the roads that were, their final paving was a trench restoration, if that road subsequently fails, then we'll go back and do something with it.
I'm just wondering if you could just explain a bit more for the paving that's going to go on, or the work that's going to go on in June and July.
Okay.
Just more specifically, what in July? I mean, I'm just thinking about what disruptions that will have. Could you just elaborate on what exactly is happening in July?
In July, it's going to be up in the area here where you see the predominantly white area with the red lines. That's where the gravity mains are going to be going in on each of the residential roads. As far as paving, as they go down each road, they will put in temporary paving when they're done with that road. However, the final paving for this whole area here will be in the fall.
Okay. So it'll just be the side roads as they do each separate little dead-end street, essentially, most of them?
Correct.
Okay.
But understanding, though, that through June and possibly into July, on Mara Vista, the trunk mains have to go in.
Right.
And they're the big, deeper mains. So you can't be putting the side streets in first. The deeper mains, the trunk mains, have to go in first in order to connect the side streets into them. So it's necessary for them to do that way.
So the disruption will continue to be through July for Mara Vista as well?
For Mara Vista,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is to interview, vote, and appoint committee members. This is for the subcommittee on the Senior Center Program Services. We have two applicants in front of us today. The first is Jean O'Connor. Is Jean here? If you come introduce yourself and tell us why you'd like to be a part of the subcommittee.
Okay, my name is...
Actually, Mr. Jack will move the microphone back to you, and then you have to go to the podium so that the TV's microphone can pick up what you have to say.
Okay, my name is Jean O'Connor, and I live in West Falmouth. I retired at the end of 2013 from a very fast-paced, high-energy consulting firm. And it didn't take me long to realize that I had a large void in my life that needed to be filled. Fortunately for me, I found the Falmouth Senior Center. And there, I do volunteer a number of days. I work on Fridays in the office. I help with the data input for the My Senior Center program. I help on special projects, and I help on the staff with a number of their programming. Conversely, on the other side, I am a senior that actually participates in many of the programs they offer, and I also participate in some of the programs offered by Gus Canty. So given my background, I feel that I could add a great deal of value to the discussion on the programming for the Senior Center.
Any questions? Ms. Moran?
What would you say are the top 3 needs in terms of us building this senior center?
Well, I think the first need is, I think you're going to find that there's going to be an explosion of seniors. I'm one of the first baby boomers, and it takes a couple of years for you to realize that you are a senior, but then when it finally sinks in is when you start looking, needing something to do in life, a little more. Something's going to take the place of your job, of your working. So I think the senior center is going to probably, as it did for me, fill that void for a number of seniors.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Jean.
Thank you.
And our next applicant is Chris Simler.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Chris Simler. I'm at 65 Walker Street in Falmouth with my wife, Noreen. I want to thank you for inviting me for possible selection onto the subcommittee.
Okay. And what is it that interests you in being a part of this subcommittee?
I'm currently an owner's project manager with Jacobs. I'm actually working on multiple projects for building committees, understand the cost schedule, scope part of it, understand the challenges a committee faces, and as far as the practicalness of it, I'm involved with the EDIC on the Falmouth bus station, renovation terminal for Mass DOT also. I understand the budgets, scopes, value engineering, and how to deliver projects on time, and I think that real-world experience coupled with someone who spoke just previously about the programming would be like a good team to bring a project in on time and under budget.
Mr. Herbst?
Yes, Mr. Simler, I see that you're interested in the building project, whereas the committee that they're putting together is for about programs and services. I'm wondering if the current, if the Board of Selectmen can explain to me whether they are differentiating between these two, because it appears like Mr. Simler has a more technical background for the construction of the senior center, whereas Ms. O'Connor was more interested in the programs.
In reading the two applications, I agree with completely. There are going to be two committees. The first one, the subcommittee, is really answering some questions in the next month and a half as to what the needs of the building are going to be, helping us with a little bit with the site analysis. And then the building committee is the one that's going to make sure the project is done on time, on budget, and sees it through. And the way you described it, I had the exact same questions too.
which is whether that might be a better committee to really be taking advantage of your expertise.
I was thinking more of the site selection. I do that with the K through 12 schools in Massachusetts with the MSBA when we have to do new site selection. So I bring that knowledge of geotech, wetlands, access, where it translates into cost and schedule. I agree on the programming. That's not my expertise. And if the site selection is not as valued as much, then I'd be more than happy to come back to a building committee solicitation.
And actually, the site selection, I probably shouldn't have mentioned, that actually is not going to really fall to this subcommittee. That's certainly going to fall much more to this board to take in all the information and make a decision. But that, I don't think that's going to be a part of the charge of this subcommittee, is to make recommendations on site, but really on size, scope, and what the program needs of this building are going to be.
I can look forward to when the next solicitation comes out and withdraw my application for this one, if that's okay.
Okay. If you're comfortable with that, then.
Yeah.
Just don't go away.
Yeah.
Don't go away.
All right, I'll be around. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
In that case, I want to make a motion to appoint Jean O'Connor.
Second.
We have a motion to appoint Gene O'Connor to our subcommittee on the Senior Center Program of Services. And a second. All those in favor say, Mr. Herbst?
Yes, I take it this is our first attempt to recruit people for this committee? Or it hasn't happened in the past?
That is correct. But
So-
we had advertised over the timetable that we were going to try to get this committee going almost as soon as we possibly could, and that the deadline was this past Friday, and that we would be having interviews tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. I think it's also appropriate this time to get our two members, because the subcommittee is going to have two members of the Board of Selectmen on this subcommittee also. We have heard from the Council on Aging and the Senior Center Site Group of their appointments of Wendy Vogel and Joe Clancy as their representatives. Jill Bishop will also be a part of this committee. We'll have someone from the Town Manager's Office. We expect to have someone from the Planning Department, but we're going to have two members from this board. And so if there are people who are interested, I think that's something that we can take care of tonight also and get this committee going.
I'm very interested in being one of the
I am
members.
as well. I am too. I mean, some of the carryover from work I did with the Finance Committee, but I'd be really interested in if no one else is chomping at the bit.
Well, I bet it's a committee that we'd all be fascinated to find out what goes on, but if the other gentlemen are okay with nominating Ms. Braga and Ms. Moran to serve those as our representatives, I'm sure they'll let us know exactly what's going on. And it being, so, Mr. Patterson, would you make that motion?
I move that we appoint Megan and English Braga and Sue Moran to the Senior Center, what's it, Program Committee? What's the title?
Subcommittee on Senior Center Program of Services.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank
Opposed,
you.
none. So call our meeting soon.
Okay.
Our next item is a presentation update on the project relative to proposed Habitat project on, Habitat for Humanity's project on Barrows Road, Lidara Sola, for Habitat for Humanity. Lidara.
Thank you very much. My name is Lee Darazola. I'm part of Habitat for Humanity's land acquisition team. I am here with Kurt Raber from Brown, Lindquist, Finuccio, and Raber, and we also have some other Habitat supporters here in the audience, Bob and Mark. Thank you. I'm in the ahead of things, sort of on the land side, so I don't always know all the people who are working. Well, I could have said that one, too. You have Heather Harper to thank for me not having a PowerPoint. I'm going to try to be very brief. If I go too fast, slow me down, just because I knew this was going to be late. Just a little bit to slow down to start off with our mission. You know, every now and then I'm before a group that doesn't know what Habitat for Humanity does. So I do like to start with our mission. We work in partnership with families in need to build home, hope, lives, and community. And we do that by building affordable houses, but it's about way more than affordable houses. It's a sweat equity program, affordable home ownership, and we truly work to engage a whole community. We are here because Falmouth is a community with a huge need, and it's a community that the Volunteer Land Strategy Group at Habitat saw as receptive. So it's sort of the need and the receptivity to our program. Sort of a long process, working with CPC, working with the Housing Trust, working really closely with town management, which is great, and departments. We have a site that we are very interested in. We have, I guess, the big point of this update to you folks and to hopefully the folks who are watching is that we have scheduled a community meeting to get feedback on the site that we have earmarked is great, Zero Barrows Road. The one thing I probably should have brought is a map, so I apologize, but at the community meeting, which I should not bury the lead here, Tuesday, June 7th, 6 p.m. at the library, the Herman Room, and then we will have maps and just some sketch site plans and we sent out a mailing to over 70 people in the neighborhood, as well as outreach to folks who have expressed interest in working with Habitat. So we hope to have a really vibrant discussion about how this works for Falmouth, because that's very important to us to work with the community. And also, I've got to say, real kudos to Falmouth, is that was very important to your folks, to community preservation, to the trust, to the folks of planning, all the groups we've met with. So that is really our first step. So we are excited to say we want to be working here. We are excited to say we have a parcel we're looking at. We've got a great team helping us. I've got to actually thank Brown Lindquist Furniture Raper for the volunteer work to date to get us. It's always so hard. How much do you do before you go out and find out what a community thinks and wants? And it's hard to go to them without something. And we've also, sort of thanks to an engineering firm, VHB, they are also donating their time to get us here. So happy to answer questions. Tried to go through that quickly. June 7th, Tuesday, 6 o'clock, the Herman Room.
Ms. Brand?
Just maybe a suggestion. Also, maybe put a notice in the Enterprise about your meeting. A lot of people depend on the written notices in terms of scheduling attendance. And then I was trying to think about what village association that might be. I think Heather Harper might be able to help you with, and you can communicate with the leadership, and they will get the word out to members.
Good suggestions, thank you.
And I do know it's a larger development than Habitat's often done. What's listed, at least in this description, is it's 9 to 12 affordable housing units.
Thank you. I didn't know how much of the details of the site. I can talk about sites forever. It's about 5.5 acres. At this point, we're looking at, it's very preliminary stages of our feasibility and our due diligence, but the range we're looking at is 9 to 12 homes. That would, some of it is a cost to build a subdivision road. How many homes do you need? The feeling is that the site is, we feel that it could support a great little neighborhood.
I certainly know I was at the opening of the houses, the three houses, 100 yards next to Town Hall, and how successful that project was. And I think of the 5.5 acres would certainly be sufficient for quite a few houses there. So, and there's no vote we are actually going to take tonight. It's just to get that information. So thank you very much, and look forward to the community coming out to your meeting on June 6th.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
June 7th, sorry.
Past my bedtime. I wouldn't have even noticed you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is a request for the permit fee waiver from the Falmouth Art Market. Do we have someone here from the Falmouth Art Market? And I believe the request was to have the same fee as it was in the past, which was $100. We actually voted a policy that the
first and last day for recurring events was going to be held, and then we could reduce it to 75%. We could either table this until they come or choose to stick with our policy.
Well, my question really is, how many of these folks that exhibit their work are Falmouth residents versus people who come in from other communities? And that could influence my decision.
Well, then it makes sense to table it, and it'll be the fee will be what it is until we agree to waive it, and if we have some questions, it's beholden upon the people asking for it to come and present their case.
Could you just clarify, I'm sorry, but what, I see that it's been $100 sort of the last few seasons. What would it be without that reduction?
So,
Do we know? I'm sure it's there somewhere in this paperwork, but, okay.
I can't remember how many Thursdays they're requesting. I think they do theirs just during the 12 weeks of the summer.
Mhm.
And so it'd be $100 per event would be the normal fee.
Okay.
What our policy allowed us to do was to charge $100 for the first day, $100 for the second day, for $200, and then up to a 75% fee waiver.
Okay.
So then it'd be an additional $25 times 10, so $250.
Mhm.
So if we went with our maximum waiver we could do, it would be $450.
Okay.
Versus 1,200.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It just doesn't sound like that's but maybe we can just table it and get clarification, because the message doesn't seem like that's what they're asking for. That's why I'm asking that question.
I agree.
right, I think they're asking for $100 as it's been, and they
Right.
would be going against our policy if we did
Right,
that.
right, okay.
That's one of the main.
That's why I'm just wondering if
Yeah.
they understand, maybe it's just helpful for everybody to get on the same page.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So, motion to table?
Yes.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I think one of the things that we were considering last year, I mean, we've tightened up this policy a little bit over the years, so it's a little bit more definitive now. But I think we were also concerned about the fact that they didn't have an opportunity for the market in 2014.
Right.
They only had it last year, and we moved them to the Gus County Center. And just so I think we're pretty lenient about the transition and trying to make it reasonable for them to get started again. So I think they should be in a different position this year. Apparently, it was very successful.
And if they're not, that's why it'd be helpful to hear, I think, more from someone.
Right.
Okay.
All right, our next item is a discussion of the beach parking permit policy that we have received from the Beach Committee. I will disclose that I run an organization which very well may try to take advantage of this policy. It is not a policy that I personally take advantage of, but the school I run during the summer has done so in the past. Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, I had a question. Will these these courtesy cards actually have a person's name on them? Are they going to be person-specific? Or are they going to be general that could be passed from one individual to another? That's my question.
Thank you, Jason, for being here.
Jason George is Chairman of the Beach Committee. Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Selectmen. When we were tasked on doing this coming up, this is merely a kind of skeleton for you all as the Board of Selectmen to adopt the policy if you choose to do so. In breaking it down in groups, we've received a couple of requests through the town manager's office, through the beach department, from different organizations that have used these in the past. Specifically, one of them was the military organization and families that they've all left, but they were probably one of the biggest people who were questioning, are we going to do anything? So with that being said, we kind of talked to other towns to see where they stand, and it ranged from, the gamut. So we kind of said, okay, well, we looked at it as a committee and said, all right, the first group is going to be active military. Now, on the base, there is I want to call it the recreation department, something like that, that oversees and issues these out. So in that case, it would be a set number of passes that the superintendent, assistant superintendent would issue out to that organization to kind of distribute to the families that are living on the base to come enjoy the beaches. One of the things that we talked about is those courtesy cards will, as it's written here, be restricted to certain beaches. And we looked at population numbers on weekends and things like that as to which beaches you wouldn't be able to get a courtesy card for. And that would be something that would be administered by the military recreation organization. In groups 2 and 3 would be educational groups, schools, and we know how difficult budgets are nowadays with schools, so by the time they're done organizing transportation, providing additional lifeguards, and there's a couple other interesting little policies that are out there where they have to provide life jackets and things like that. The cost could be substantial, so if we can, relieve that burden a little bit, I think that's important. Again, putting the responsibility back on the beach department to say, based on your group, based on the time of day and everything else, we think this would be the best beach to go to. That would be a day pass. They would be issued it. It would have a name of the organization, a date, and everything else, and that would be collected by the parking lot attendant at that date, so it'd be a one-time use thing. And then the last group would be nonprofit organizations like the Boys and Girls Clubs or something like that. We have some organizations from Boston that come down. So again, the same basic principle. And then the only other thing is there's an application, and this is just a generic application that we kind of came up with. And our feeling is, if someone's truly serious about looking to get a benefit of going to the beach, or they should go through an application process. And that kind of creates a level of, what's the word, I'm drawing a blank, a level of, commitment that they really want to do this, and also it allows the superintendent, assistant superintendent to go back and kind of audit where they're giving passes to, why they're saying yes or why they're saying no. And if there's any questions.
Sure. For Dawn or for you, whoever feels more comfortable. So I really appreciate the application process, especially for nonprofit organizations or educational groups that are out of town. For example, you wouldn't want the Boys and Girls Clubs of America here on 4th of July with busloads of people, and that, I think, would allow planning, and I'm not sure how much administrative work that would entail, so how...
I think it's kind of, what this is just building on what Don and Bruce already have in place as it is now. Most organizations will contact you and say, we're coming to this beach, and what this does is gives the beach administration a chance to kind of direct them somewhere, but at the same time notify the staff who's coming. You may have an extra, 20 people on the beach. It's this group. Here's a point of contact if there's an issue. I think it gives them a little more oversight as to what's going on at that beach at any given day.
So I guess I'm hoping for as much advance application as possible.
Correct.
I think that would be ideal. But I was just curious if you canvassed, say, sandwich beaches, to see what their policies were, just as an example.
We did that more with the military, because unlike the other two groups, groups 2 and 3, that's, those could kind of be a hit or miss thing, but the military is, like the town of Barnstable, for example, they give, I believe it's 10 passes to the recreation department there, and then they can do with it as they please.
So it seems that the policy is modeled after
There's
Barnstable.
more, no, well, it's our own policy. I mean, we did this, we sat down as a committee, but, that was kind of a good, let the group that's in place at the military handle their business, as opposed to trying to tell them how to do their job.
Thank you.
And I think it's helpful that it's clear that it's a one-day pass.
Correct.
I think, there was some, just concern, I was hearing this idea of a pass, sort of a season pass, which this is not that. It's a one-day, a special, again, a trip that the Boys and Girls Club or some organization is doing that they apply for ahead of time, and it's state-specific.
The only one which would be a season pass, which would be something administered through the military.
Which is, I think,
Completely different.
a different scenario.
We've even thrown it out as far as making them color-coded, so it's very easy, A season pass is bright green, and this one's red, and this one's, however the beach department decides how they want to do it.
I think in the policy you put forward, there's still some issues that the town council may need to go through. But what I think we could approve tonight is, are we in favor of a policy that allows 3 things? 1, a seasonal pass given to military families from the base, from Joint Base Cod that we just heard from. and the other two, day passes to educational organizations and day passes to nonprofit organizations. And on a very skeleton basis, is this board interested in adopting some policy that allows for those three groups?
I'm certainly interested. I think it's very reasonable.
And then we'll have to come back, I think, a little bit more, things that the town council's looked at that fine tune little things, but based on the skeleton we've gotten from the beach committee, which is exactly what we came to them saying, you guys come up with a policy and we'll see what we can do to approve it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Looks good.
So in concept, can I get a motion to approve that we will be approving those kinds of passes for seasonal for military and daily passes for educational and nonprofit organizations?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Herbst?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what is left to be done.
There are a few issues the town council has with, because there is a monetary value to something that we're giving out, that we've got to make sure that we actually have it written exactly the way it's legally allowed for us to give away something that has monetary value to, whether we are actually going to have the person's name on for the military, or whether it's going to be something that goes to the military organization, say, here, you guys have 15 passes, distribute it how you want. The town council still has a few issues on that. And as to also whether we need to have identification of the driver who's showing up to say that they are with that organization. He just had a few questions that he felt we needed to, and he had not, we just received this draft on Friday, and he has not had a chance to come up with a few more details.
I mean, this is just the concept. We actually have to have the policy.
Right.
We actually have to have the policy in place and the procedure, right?
Right. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. Next, we have a sign variance, off-premises sign for Falmouth Vips, the Feasts of Falmouth. They're
Pretty much what we've approved before.
right. And this is starting on May 30th to June 3rd, coming up soon.
At Mahoney's, this Friday, 5 to 7.
And they have 10 different locations they're hoping to have the signs up.
I'm going to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it.
Did we skip over something, Mr. Chair? The town hall temporary physical display policy?
Nope, we're getting to that. That's number 9.
Excuse me, I have it out of order then.
Just to clarify on the VIPs, I don't think that it's not this Friday, right?
Oh, it was the date you
It's
said.
Friday, yeah.
It's on June 3rd,
Right.
just so everyone out there doesn't get worried that they don't have a ticket for it yet, but June 3rd at Mahoney's. The next is to authorize the town manager to establish a policy concerning temporary physical displays. This is actually related to we currently have a display on recycling and waste management, and how long is that display going to be in place, and what might go in place of that. And he wanted to know if he wanted to come up with a policy, and I said I was very happy to having him come up with a policy that we would then, that we'd authorize him to take responsibility of that. And so he's up his policy, and
I think it covers everything quite well. Limited to a period of not more than 6 weeks, allows turnover. And there's a procedure now where there's an actual letter of request and minutes of the meeting that reflect the request. So I think it's smart, and I will move to approve that policy.
Second.
motion and second. Any further discussion? Mr. Herbst?
Add the word "to" between on the last line, related and elections. Not to be related elections,
Yes.
to elections.
Yep.
Isn't that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Motion and second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. All right, you also have your list of liaisons. And we're now on setting a date for our strategic planning retreat. As I noticed your note from Mr. Suso, often we've tried to do it on a Saturday, but our facilitator that we've used in the past few years is not available. And so the days we're considering, or the evenings, we do not have a regular meeting scheduled on Monday, June 13th in the evening, and we could consider that evening or the 14th or 15th, unless people have reasons why any of those days are particularly preferable or not.
Sorry, this is June 14th and 15th?
June 13th, 14th, to 15th, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday evening?
I will be out of town on the 14th. I'm participating on behalf of the board in
Oh,
a
that's right.
housing institute up in at Danvers.
And that's the two-day one?
Devon's, excuse me. That's a two-day one.
So it's
for
14th
the
and 15th?
14th and 15th.
I like doing Mondays since we generally have those scheduled anyway, so I would be in favor of the 13th, which is the Monday.
Agreed.
And could you just tell me the timeline that you're looking at, the
We're
evening?
probably thinking it'd be about 6 to 9 in the evening, and in the past, we've had that at Highfield Hall, and I know we could get the billiard room there for just a strategic retreat. We're not sure that Jeff can do that evening, so
Right, we need to confirm that. Is there a second date that the board might look at if Monday, the 13th would not be a go? Would that,
What's the next choice? Because Sam said he's out the 14th.
well, I'm wondering about that following week, it's not available, they indicated. Perhaps the last week of June it might be, subject to checking, maybe the 27th or 28th as a fallback? That would be a Monday or a Tuesday?
I'd still stick with the Monday.
right, and even if we can't do it there, I'm sure there's another location in town we could have a retreat.
So maybe the second choice be Monday,
Maybe
the
the 27th?
27th, preferably the 13th, and we'll see if we can get that locked down, 6 to 9 p.m. tentatively.
That's fine. Works for me.
For our board meeting on the 20th, I will be out of town, driving back from New Orleans on the 20th, but I think we should still have a board meeting anyway.
Absolutely. I'll take care of that.
I'm sure you will. Okay, great, so we'll find out from Mr. Nutting as to whether he can join us in which of those two.
We'll
days.
proceed with the preferred one being Monday, the 13th. That's agreeable to the board, and fall back for the 27th.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, individual selectmen's report. Does anyone have anything they'd like to report on? Mr. Patterson?
A couple meetings, the fire department's Police Week ceremony last Wednesday, which included a remembrance for Samuel Pierce, the Falmouth policeman that actually died in active duty back in the 1930s, and then for John Robert Catfia, who died just this year in Florida in the line of duty. It was a great ceremony, and it's always a nice opportunity to recognize our police for the excellent service that they give our town. I think we truly do have an exceptional police department and really appreciate their proactive efforts in trying to address some of the opiate addiction problems that we're facing. The second event is I attended, along with Julian and Peter McCarty, a stormwater management workshop held at 4Cs. It was put on by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Massachusetts DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, and the Association for the Protection of Cape Cod. It's a heads up because the United States EPA is basically going to tell us that we're going to have to do these things. And it does involve a lot of things like regular maintenance of catch basins, of single point pollution that comes in various forms, much more benign than we might have thought about. But it's going to have a big impact on the towns and how we do our business. There are communities around Massachusetts that have already started to plan and address this and think about sharing equipment with other municipalities. We're a large enough town, we probably can justify purchasing some of the equipment for our own Department of Public Works. But it is a major kind of maintenance activity that we're going to have to take in and pay for. And while it's an unfunded mandate, a stormwater runoff is a significant contributor to the nitrogen loading in our estuaries. And so we're going to pay for sewering, alternative septic systems in some places and what have you, inlet widening. This is another area that we can actually invest in that will help to, improve the quality of our estuaries and help restore them back to the health that they were in, 40 years ago. So just those two things.
You also said you were at the planning board meeting, and had mentioned that they have scheduled a meeting with the zoning board of appeals.
I was actually at the Conservation
Conservation
Commission
Commission,
hearing, and the date came up of June 15th. And I think I'll be back in time for it, but it is they're proposing to have a joint planning board Conservation Commission meeting, and I think it's over coastal resiliency.
Right.
And I suggested that, we should at least attend, but perhaps ask if they wouldn't include us in this joint meeting.
I wanted to ask this board's opinion as to whether you wanted me to impose our invitation that we wanted to be a part of it or not, or did we want to be audience members?
I'd like to be part of the meeting
Okay.
for this board.
I'll reach out to Jim and the Conservation Commission and see if they
And
include us.
The date is the 13th, correct?
The 15th.
15th.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a Wednesday night.
Yep. All right, any other reports? Mr. Suso, Town Manager's report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple items. On Thursday evening past week, I convened the second meeting of the Shellfish Aquaculture Working Group on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. You will recall, following a significant discussion during town meeting, it was affirmed we would be proceeding with the working group format with the implementation of Town Meeting Article 14. The second meeting was very productive, and we'll be meeting again in June with an anticipated monthly meeting schedule. I was also pleased to attend the 102nd annual meeting of the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce this past Wednesday evening. My compliments and congratulations to Bill Zammer Jr. on being named 2016 Citizen of the Year. As we all are well aware, Bill's generosity and support for activities in the community is indeed legendary. Just as a reminder, this coming Monday, May 30th, is Memorial Day. Town Hall and town offices will be closed as per usual for that holiday. There is a ceremony on the library lawn at 10 a.m. And traditionally, we join in with the Veterans Committee and so many others. Also, as a reminder, traditionally we have a step-off procession in cooperation with veterans, including the Board of Selectmen, at 9:45 a.m. that same day from the Village Green, and proceed to the library lawn together. We look forward to joining members of the board. I look forward to joining members of the board in that procession and ceremony as per usual. I also want to apologize to members of the community for the continued traffic challenges that we've had throughout the Falmouth community. The good news is, as Ray Jack has confirmed and as the board's aware, in terms of the town's projects on major arterials, we have concluded that for the season and concluded them ahead of schedule. Again, those are on the major arterials. Work will be continuing, of course, in the neighborhoods, as was noted in Ray's report earlier this evening. The bad news is that some of the disruption will continue with the extension which we discussed at the last meeting and that was appropriately granted to MassDOT's contractor PA Landers in an attempt to allow them to catch up a bit on Davisville and the Jones Road intersections and complete as much of that project as they reasonably can, allowing them about a 3-week extension into the middle part of June to put things in much better order with the very busy season to come. We know that that means some additional inconvenience, particularly to year-round residents, and we apologize for that and thank them for their continued patience, remembering that this is really the only way to effectively bring these projects to more productive and effective closure and not drag them out unduly. So thank you for everybody's patience for a few additional weeks with the MassDOT portion of that project. Also, as another reminder, we will be having police and fire operations on the King Street residential structure next to the headquarters fire station. Those will be training operations on the part of first police department, secondarily fire. That will be occurring this week in advance of the demolition, ultimate demolition of that structure. I do want to underscore there will be no burning of that structure, only training operations. And we have, I thank the police department for their efforts to leaflet all of the neighbors in that area over this past weekend so that they're fully aware of those training operations going forward. As board members will recall, ultimately, after the demolition of that structure, which has been acquired, we'll be constructing a public parking lot to serve the headquarters fire station that has long been underserved with insufficient parking. There is a major public meeting space within the headquarters fire station that we have not been able to properly utilize since that was constructed, and that will no longer be the case once that is completed later in this calendar year, that parking facility. But the police and fire operations and the demolition will be occurring, police and fire this week, the demolition over the coming 30 days. Also, I wanted to remind everyone that the signage has been posted now in the downtown Main Street area, advising all of the limitation on parking for 3 hours between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., 7 days per week. And the police department, since that signage has now been erected, has begun the courtesy notification process that we also talked about. That will be continuing through the middle part of June, leafleting any drivers who are, or vehicles that are parked there beyond the 3-hour limitation, and reminding them that beginning in mid-June, there will be an enforcement process and the courtesy notifications will end. So we want to make certain that everybody has adequate notice that that is coming. We've talked about it at length. There have been email blasts through to chamber members and a lot of discussions with those affected. So that is now underway. We're very pleased to have that moving forward. And I want members of the board to keep in mind that the chief and I will be coming back to you with a report on this one-year experiment to report to the board as to what the results have been and determine whether you want to continue that, adjust it, et cetera, for the year to come. So that is well underway. And also, I want to take a moment and also welcome once again Megan and Ralph to membership on the Board of Selectmen. I look forward to being of service to you and working on your behalf as town manager, and we look forward to the days to come. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
I did want to comment on how aesthetically pleasing actually I did think the signs on Main Street were. I think they're inobtrusive but still get the message across, but they're not. I was worried that we might have to be more glaring, and actually they looked really nice in that.
Thank you. We are looking forward to that. That is no accident, as you can imagine. Mr. Chairman, Police Chief Dunn and I work closely with Peter McConerty and our colleagues in Public Works to craft those in a way that was, as you say, gets the job done, but is not unattractive in doing so. We did not want to aesthetically impact the downtown with unnecessary signs. So, again, that remains a work in progress. Thank you for your comments.
Okay. We're here until we get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.